The rain hammered against cracked windows as Adrian Voss sat in the forgotten diner, a man everyone believed had buried his heart with his wife 6 months ago. The most feared name in the underworld didn't flinch at violence anymore. He was built from it now, carved into something cold and efficient. Then a tray crashed. A voice cut through the storm, and when the waitress turned around, exhausted and swollen with pregnancy, Adrian's world shattered for the second time. Because standing there, terrified and very much alive, was Alara, the wife he'd mourned, the ghost he'd never stopped loving. If you want to see how this impossible reunion tears through lies, betrayal, and blood, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The diner squatted at the edge of the industrial district like something the city had tried to forget. Neon buzzed weakly through the rain, casting sickly pink light across cracked pavement. Inside, the fluorescent tubes flickered with the rhythm of a dying heartbeat. 3 customers hunched over lukewarm coffee. Nobody looked up when the door opened. Adrian Voss stepped inside, water streaming from his black coat. He moved like smoke, quiet, inevitable. The 2 men flanking him weren't there for coffee. They were there because Adrian Voss didn't go anywhere without insurance. Not anymore. 6 months had changed him in ways that went deeper than the new scar across his knuckles or the gray threading through his dark hair. His wife's funeral had been closed casket. There hadn't been enough left to show. The bomb that ripped through her car had been thorough, professional. Adrian had spent 3 weeks hunting the people responsible. What he'd done to them in those abandoned warehouses would have made most men vomit. It barely registered for him. He slid into a booth near the back, the vinyl cracking under his weight. Marcus would arrive in 15 minutes. They had business, a shipping route that needed adjusting, a politician who'd forgotten which family owned him, the kind of details that kept an empire running. Adrian had learned to focus on the mechanics. If he thought too much about why he was doing any of it, the emptiness opened up like a wound. Coffee? The voice came from his left. He didn't look up. Black. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Running late, 20 minutes. Adrian's jaw tightened. Marcus had been running late a lot recently. 6 months ago, before Alara died, he would have noticed that pattern earlier, would have asked questions. Now he just felt tired. The kitchen door swung open with a metallic shriek. Adrian's bodyguards tensed reflexively, hands moving toward concealed weapons. Just a waitress. Young, maybe mid-20s, moving like someone who'd been on her feet too long. Her uniform hung loose except around her midsection, where it pulled tight over an obviously pregnant belly. She balanced a tray of coffee cups with practiced care, her dark hair falling across her face. The exhaustion was visible in every movement, the slight tremor in her hands, the way she had to pause to steady herself against a table. Adrian watched without really seeing. Pregnant waitresses working dead-end shifts. The city chewed people up like that. He'd built his fortune on that fact, on desperate people making desperate choices. The tray tilted. She tried to catch it, overcorrected. Ceramic shattered across tile. Coffee spread in a dark pool. The sound cut through the diner's quiet like a gunshot. "Shit," she breathed. "Shit, shit, shit." Her voice. Adrian's head snapped up so fast his neck cracked. That voice. He knew that voice the way he knew his own heartbeat, knew it from 1,000 mornings, from fights and laughter and whispered promises in the dark. The waitress was already dropping to her knees, trying to gather the broken pieces. Her hair fell forward, hiding her face. "Leave it," the cook barked from behind the counter. "Just leave it and get me the mop before—" "I'm sorry." The waitress's voice shook. "I'm sorry, I'll clean it. I just need—" She looked up. Time stopped. Adrian's coffee cup hit the table. Liquid sloshed across his hand. He didn't feel it. Alara, not someone who looked like her. Not a hallucination born from grief and too many sleepless nights. Alara, his wife. The woman he'd buried. The woman he'd mourned. The woman he'd watched lowered into the ground in a sealed coffin because there wasn't enough left to see. She was thinner, exhausted. There were dark circles under her eyes that hadn't been there before, and her hair was shorter, badly cut like she'd done it herself with kitchen scissors. But it was her. The curve of her jaw. The exact angle of her cheekbones. The small scar above her left eyebrow from when she'd fallen off her bike at 14. And she was pregnant. Very pregnant. Alara's eyes met his across the diner. The color drained from her face. The broken cup pieces fell from her hands.
No, she whispered.
No, no, no. Adrian stood. His chair scraped across the floor. His bodyguards moved with him, confused but alert. Alara. His voice came out wrecked. 6 months of holding everything together, of functioning like a machine, of pretending the grief wasn't slowly killing him. It all cracked apart in that single word. She scrambled backward, still on her knees, broken ceramic cutting into her palms. Blood welled up. She didn't seem to notice. Stay away from me. Her voice climbed toward panic. Please, please stay away. What? Adrian took a step forward. His mind was trying to process the impossible, trying to reconcile the coffin and the funeral and the months of grief with the woman in front of him. How are you, she? I said stay back. She was on her feet now, backing toward the kitchen. Don't come near me, don't. The cook appeared in the doorway. The hell's going on out here? He was a big man, mid-50s, with forearms like hams and a face that suggested he'd done time. The kind of guy who'd hired Alara without asking too many questions. He took one look at the scene and made the wrong calculation. You bothering my girl? He moved toward Adrian with the confidence of someone who didn't recognize death when it walked in wearing a $1,000 suit. One of Adrian's bodyguards shifted forward. Adrian raised a hand, stopping him.
This doesn't concern you, Adrian said, not taking his eyes off Alara. Walk away. The fuck it doesn't. The cook grabbed Alara's arm. You okay, honey? She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. I'm fine. Just doesn't look fine to me. The cook's grip tightened. Looks like this asshole's scaring you. We don't need his kind in here. Adrian saw it happen in slow motion, the cook's fingers digging into Alara's upper arm. The way she flinched, the small gasp of pain. Something ancient and violent surged up through Adrian's chest. Take your hand off my wife. The words came out quiet, deadly. The cook laughed. Actually laughed. Your wife? Brother, I don't know what kind of game you're... Adrian moved. He crossed the distance in 2 strides. His hand locked around the cook's wrist with enough force to make bones grind. The bigger man's face went white. I won't say it again. Adrian's voice hadn't risen. It didn't need to. Let her go. The cook released Alara and tried to pull free. Adrian's grip didn't budge. Jesus Christ, you're breaking. Adrian twisted. Not hard enough to snap anything, but hard enough to send the message. The cook dropped to one knee with a choked sound. Out! Adrian released him. Before I change my mind about being reasonable. The cook didn't need to be told twice. He scrambled backward, cradling his wrist, and disappeared into the kitchen. The door swung shut behind him. The other customers had already left. Adrian's bodyguards moved to the entrance, blocking it, creating privacy. Adrian turned back to Alara. She was pressed against the counter, one hand protectively over her swollen belly. Her eyes were wide, not with relief, but with terror. Don't! Her voice cracked. Please don't. Don't what? Adrian took a step toward her. Alara, what the hell is happening? How are you? They told me you were dead. They showed me the car. There was DNA evidence, dental records. Stop! She was crying now, tears cutting tracks through the exhaustion on her face. Just stop talking. I know what you are. I know what you do to people who cross you. The words hit Adrian like a physical blow. Alara, what are you talking about? Please. She was begging now, her whole body trembling. I didn't know where else to go. I had nothing. But I never talked. I swear to God I never told anyone anything about your business. I've been invisible. I've been careful. I didn't... Alara. Adrian kept his voice gentle, fighting the urge to close the distance between them and pull her into his arms. I don't understand. Why would you need to hide from me? I thought you were dead. I mourned you. You ordered it. The accusation exploded out of her. Don't stand there and pretend. I know it was you. Marcus told me everything before. Marcus. Adrian's blood went cold. What does Marcus have to do with this? Alara laughed, but it was a broken sound. He came to warn me, the night before the car bomb. He said you'd found out about the pregnancy, that you couldn't risk the exposure, that you'd decided I was too much of a liability. He told me to run or you'd kill me. The floor tilted under Adrian's feet. Alara, that's not true. None of that is true. Don't lie to me, her voice rose. I saw the order. Marcus showed me the text from your phone, your private number, word for word. The wife has become a problem. Handle it permanently.
Adrian's mind raced. His private phone. Only 3 people had that number. Marcus was one of them. "I never sent that message," he said. "Alara, I swear on everything, I never—" "Then why did someone blow up my car?" She was sobbing openly now. "Why did Marcus risk his life to warn me if it wasn't real? Why have I been living in shelters and sleeping in my car and working 3 jobs if you didn't want me dead?" Adrian forced himself to think through the rage building in his chest. 6 months ago, Marcus had come to him with news about the car bomb, had shown him the wreckage, the evidence, the confirmation that Alara was gone, had stood beside him at the funeral, had helped him hunt down the supposed perpetrators, a rival family trying to send a message. And all of it had been a lie. "Where's Marcus now?" Adrian asked quietly. Alara shook her head. "I don't know. I haven't seen him since that night. He gave me $5,000 in cash and told me to disappear. Said if you found me, he couldn't protect me." $5,000. Just enough to keep her running, keep her desperate, keep her from asking questions or trying to reach out. Marcus had played it perfectly, made her afraid of the one person who would have burned the city down to keep her safe. "The pregnancy," Adrian said. "How far along are you?" 7 months. Her hand moved protectively over her belly. "I found out a week before everything happened." 7 months. Which meant she'd been pregnant when she disappeared. Which meant, is it mine? The question came out raw. Alara's face crumpled. "How can you even ask me that?" "Because 6 months ago my wife died in a car bomb, and now she's standing in front of me pregnant and terrified, and I don't know what the hell is real anymore." Adrian's control finally cracked. "Is it mine?" "Yes!" She was shouting now too. "Yes, you bastard! Yes, it's yours. I found out, and I was going to tell you, and then Marcus came and showed me that text, and I didn't know what else to do. I thought you wanted us dead." Us. The word hung in the air. Adrian had a son. Or a daughter. Growing inside the woman he'd thought he'd lost. The family he'd never known he'd wanted was right here, had been alive this whole time while he'd been— "I'm going to kill him," Adrian said quietly. "I'm going to kill Marcus Hale." "He saved my life," Alara said, but there was uncertainty creeping into her voice now. "He warned me when he didn't have to. He lied to you." Adrian pulled out his phone. "He lied to both of us. He faked your death, stole 6 months of our lives, and left you pregnant and terrified while He stopped. While he what? While he'd turned into something harder, colder, more efficient. While he'd stripped away anything that made him hesitate or second guess. While he'd become exactly the kind of weapon Marcus needed to expand the organization's reach. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. "He needed me angry," Adrian said. "Needed me focused on nothing but the business. You made me soft. Made me think about getting out, about building something legitimate. He couldn't have that." Alara was staring at him now, really seeing him for the first time. "You didn't know. I didn't know. You didn't order. I would never." Adrian's voice broke. "Alara, I would burn the world down before I let anyone hurt you. How could you think— Because that's what everyone told me you were." She was crying again. "That's what the news said, what the police said, what your own people said. Adrian Voss, the ghost, the killer, the man who built an empire on fear. Why wouldn't I believe you'd kill me too? Because I loved you." Adrian crossed the distance between them in 2 steps. Alara didn't run this time. "Because I married you knowing it would make you a target, and I promised you I'd always keep you safe, and I failed. But I never stopped loving you, not for 1 second." His hand reached for her face, then stopped inches away, asking permission. Alara's breath hitched. Then she leaned forward just slightly, closing the gap. His palm cupped her cheek. She was warm, real, alive. "I thought you were dead," he whispered. "I wanted to die too. I thought you wanted me dead." Her hand came up to cover his. "I was so scared." "I know. I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry." They stood there in the middle of the destroyed diner, surrounded by broken ceramic and spilled coffee, holding on to each other like drowning people. The moment shattered with the sound of the kitchen door slamming open. The cook was back, and he wasn't alone. 3 men, all carrying. The kind of improvised security that diner owners kept on speed dial in this part of town. "Told you to leave," the cook said. "Now we're going to make you." Adrian didn't move. Didn't take his hand from Alara's face. Tell them to go away, he said quietly, still looking at his wife. Alara bit her lip. Then, Eddie, these men need to leave. Now. The hell they do. They can... Now, Eddie, something in her voice cut through the bravado. Please, just let them go. Eddie looked between them, reading the situation, probably seeing enough in Adrian's eyes to realize he'd miscalculated badly. Your funeral, he muttered. He jerked his head at his backup. They filed out, leaving Adrian alone with Alara and his bodyguards. We need to leave, Adrian said. Marcus will have eyes everywhere. If someone saw me come in here, if they tell him, he'll know I'm alive. Alara pulled back, the fear creeping back into her eyes. He'll know, you know. And he'll run. Adrian was already thinking 3 steps ahead. Or he'll try to finish what he started. His phone buzzed. Marcus. On my way. 10 minutes. Adrian stared at the message. Marcus was coming here, to this exact location, which meant... This wasn't random, he said slowly. He sent me here. What? The meeting. He chose this place, said his usual spot was being watched. Adrian's mind raced. He wanted me to find you. Why would he... Unless it was a test. Unless Marcus had been watching, waiting to see if Adrian had really become the cold, efficient killer he'd been shaped into. If Adrian would do what needed to be done when confronted with the ghost of his dead wife. If he'd finished the job. We're leaving. Adrian grabbed Alara's hand. Right now. I can't just... My things. There's no time. He pulled her toward the door. His bodyguards moved into formation around them. Whatever you left behind, we'll replace it. Right now, we need to... The window exploded inward. Adrian reacted on instinct, throwing himself over Alara as glass rained down. They hit the floor hard. His body covered hers, protected her and the baby from the debris. Gunfire. Automatic weapons. The booth where he'd been sitting disintegrated into splinters. Back door! One of his bodyguards was returning fire, buying them seconds. Go, go, go! Adrian hauled Alara up. She was screaming, hands over her head. He half carried, half dragged her toward the kitchen. More gunfire. One of his men went down. The other was still shooting, creating cover. They burst through the kitchen door. The cook and his friends had already fled. Smart. The back exit was 20 feet away. A rusted metal door that probably opened into an alley. Adrian kicked it open and pulled Alara through. Rain hammered down. The alley was narrow, dark, lined with dumpsters and fire escapes. Adrian's car was parked on the main street, unreachable now. They'd have to run. Can you run? He asked Alara. She was breathing hard, hands protectively over her belly. I can try. More gunfire from inside the diner. His remaining bodyguard was either dead or pinned down. Adrian made a decision. He scooped Alara up, one arm under her knees, the other around her shoulders. Hold on to me. He ran. Behind them, the shooting continued. Someone would call the police, but in this neighborhood, that meant 15 minutes minimum. They needed to be gone in 5. Adrian's lungs burned. Alara wasn't heavy, but she was awkward to carry, and his dress shoes weren't made for sprinting through rain-slicked alleys. He pushed through it, focusing on the end of the block, on getting her somewhere safe. A car pulled across the alley entrance ahead of them. Adrian skidded to a stop, nearly losing his balance. The car door opened. Marcus Hale stepped out. Hale. He looked the same as always. Perfectly tailored suit, graying hair slicked back. The kind of face that could sell you anything. He wasn't holding a weapon. Didn't need to. 3 armed men flanked him. Adrian. Marcus's voice was calm, almost friendly. We need to talk. Adrian set Alara down but kept her behind him. His hand moved to the gun under his jacket. Talk about what, Marcus? About how you faked my wife's death? About how you've been lying to me for 6 months? About how I saved your life. Marcus took a step forward. His men raised their weapons slightly. About how I turned you from a lovesick fool into the leader this organization needed. By making me think she was dead? By removing the weakness. Marcus's eyes flicked to Alara. Look at you. 5 minutes with her, and you're already making stupid decisions. Running through alleys, exposing yourself, thinking with your heart instead of your head. She's my wife. She's a liability. Marcus's voice hardened. She always was. You were getting soft, talking about going legitimate, about walking away from everything we built. I couldn't let that happen. So you killed her? Or tried to? I saved her.
Marcus gestured to Alara. I could have had her eliminated. Should have, honestly. But I gave her cash, gave her a chance to run, because despite what you think, I'm not a monster. You're worse than a monster. Adrian's hand was on his gun now. You're a traitor. I'm a realist. Marcus smiled slightly. And I made the right call. Look what you accomplished in the last 6 months. The territories we took, the deals we closed. You became what you were always meant to be. I became miserable. You became effective. Marcus's smile faded. And now you're going to make a choice. You can walk away with her, try to build some fairy tale life, and watch everything we built crumble. Watch our enemies smell weakness and tear us apart. He paused. Or you can finish what I started. You can put a bullet in her right now, prove you're still the man I made you into, and we'll continue building this empire together. The rain pounded down. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. Alara's hand found Adrian's, squeezed tight. You're insane, Adrian said quietly. You actually think I think you're smart enough to do the math. Marcus pulled out a phone, showed Adrian the screen. Security footage, multiple angles. I have cameras in half the buildings in this city. If you shoot me, my men will know within 60 seconds. If you run, they'll hunt you down. But if you make the right choice... He let the sentence hang. Adrian stared at the man he'd trusted for 10 years. The man who'd been at his wedding. Who'd helped him build everything from nothing. Who'd turned his wife's murder into a tool for manipulation. You're right about one thing, Adrian said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. What's that? I'm not the same man I was 6 months ago. Adrian drew his gun and fired in one smooth motion. The bullet caught Marcus in the chest, center mass. He staggered back, surprise blooming across his face. His men started to raise their weapons, but Adrian was already moving. He grabbed Alara, pulled her behind a dumpster as gunfire erupted. Metal pinged and sparked. Adrian returned fire blindly, buying seconds. The fire escape! Alara pointed upward with a shaking hand. 3rd floor. It connects to the building behind us. Adrian looked up. She was right. The ladder was 15 feet away, exposed, but it was their only shot. When I say run, you run. He ejected his magazine, slammed in his spare. Last one. Don't stop. Don't look back. I'll be right behind you. Adrian, I'm not losing you again. He leaned out and fired 3 quick shots, making Marcus's men dive for cover. Run! Alara ran. Pregnant, exhausted, terrified, she ran like hell. Adrian followed, firing backward to keep the gunmen suppressed. Bullets sparked off brick and metal around them. Alara reached the ladder, started climbing. Adrian hit the bottom rung just as his gun clicked empty. He threw it at the nearest gunman and climbed. A bullet grazed his calf. Pain exploded up his leg. He kept climbing. Alara reached the 3rd floor and scrambled over the railing. Adrian pulled himself up after her, his injured leg screaming. Below, the gunmen were reloading, preparing to follow. This way! Alara was already running along the fire escape toward the connecting building. She'd worked in this neighborhood, knew the layout. They jumped the gap between buildings, stumbled through an unlocked window into someone's apartment. An elderly woman looked up from her TV, mouth opening to scream. Sorry, Adrian gasped. Wrong apartment. They ran through her living room, out into the hallway, down 3 flights of stairs. Behind them, more gunfire. The building's residents were screaming. They burst out onto a different street. Rain soaked them instantly. Adrian's leg was bleeding badly, leaving a trail. A taxi sat at the corner, engine running. Adrian yanked the door open, pulled Alara inside. Drive. Now. I'll pay you $10,000 to drive and not ask questions. The driver, a grizzled man in his 60s, looked at them in his rearview mirror. Saw the blood, the fear, the desperation. Saw the pregnant woman shaking in the back seat. 20,000, he said. Done. The taxi pulled away from the curb just as Marcus's men rounded the corner. They fired at the retreating vehicle. The back window exploded. The driver cursed but kept going, taking a hard right into an alley. Adrian pulled Alara down, covering her with his body again. Glass rained over them. You okay? He asked. No. Her voice was muffled against his chest. None of this is okay. I know. He held her tighter. I know. The taxi careened through the city, taking random turns, losing any possible tail. After 15 minutes, the driver finally spoke. Where to? Adrian thought fast. His penthouse was compromised. His safe houses might be too. Marcus had been his second in command for a decade. He knew everything, almost everything. The old steel mill, Adrian said. North Industrial District. That's condemned. I own it. The driver shrugged and changed direction. Adrian pulled out his phone, his personal one, not the business line Marcus had been monitoring. He sent 3 texts to people he trusted, people Marcus didn't know about. Then he turned to Alara. She was crying silently, one hand on her belly, the other gripping the door handle like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to reality. Hey, Adrian touched her face gently. Look at me. She did. Her eyes were red, terrified. I'm going to keep you safe, he said. Both of you. I promise. You promised that before. Her voice broke. Look how that turned out. He couldn't argue with that. I know. I failed you. But I'm not failing you again. Marcus is... He stopped. Is Marcus dead? I don't think so. The driver spoke up. Saw him on the ground, but he was moving. Your aim was off. Or the bulletproof vest had caught it. Marcus was paranoid. Of course he wore protection, which meant he was alive, which meant he'd be coming. How long until we're there? Adrian asked. 10 minutes. 10 minutes to figure out how to fight a war while protecting a pregnant woman who'd been living on the streets for 6 months. 10 minutes to plan how to dismantle an organization he'd spent a decade building, because now every person in it was potentially Marcus's weapon. 10 minutes to figure out how to be a husband again to a wife who barely knew him anymore. Alara's hand found his, squeezed. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too, Adrian admitted. It was the most honest thing he'd said in 6 months. The taxi pulled into the abandoned steel mill's lot. The building loomed against the night sky, a skeleton of rust and concrete. Adrian paid the driver in cash from his emergency stash, added an extra $5,000 for the broken window. The man counted it, looked at Alara, looked at Adrian. You two take care of that baby, hear me? We will, Adrian said. They got out. The taxi disappeared into the rain. Adrian led Alara through a gap in the fence into the building. Inside it smelled like decay and old metal, but it was dry and it was secure. He'd bought this place 3 years ago under a shell company Marcus didn't know about, a backup plan for a backup plan. There's a clean room upstairs, Adrian said. I keep supplies, cash, weapons. We'll be safe here tonight. Alara followed him up rusted stairs, her breathing labored. The pregnancy was wearing on her. She needed rest, needed medical attention, needed things Adrian couldn't provide in an abandoned factory. The safe room was exactly as he'd left it. Climate-controlled, stocked with MREs and water, a cot in the corner. Not comfortable, but functional. Alara sank onto the cot immediately. I need to tell you something. Adrian was checking his leg wound through and through, not as bad as it felt. What? The baby. She looked down at her belly. Something's wrong. I've been having contractions since the diner, since we ran. Adrian's blood went cold. Contractions? You're 7 months. That's too early. I know. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I know, but I can't afford a hospital. I don't have insurance, and if I gave them my real name, we're going to a hospital. Adrian was already pulling out his phone. Right now. Adrian, if Marcus finds out, then he finds out. Adrian's voice was steel. I'm not losing you again, and I'm not losing our child. We go to the hospital, we deal with Marcus after. But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't that simple. A hospital meant records, meant exposure, meant giving Marcus a target. His phone buzzed. One of his 3 trusted contacts had responded. Safe house ready. Medical supplies on site. Bring her now. Adrian showed Alara the message. We have another option. A doctor I trust, former Army medic, works off the books. He owes me. Can he handle premature labor? If it comes to that, yes. He's not a hospital, but he's good. Adrian helped her to her feet. It's a 20-minute drive. Can you make it? Another contraction hit her. She gasped, doubling over. Adrian caught her, supported her weight. I don't think I have a choice, she managed. They made their way back downstairs, back into the rain. Adrian's legs screamed with every step, but he ignored it. One of his other contacts had left a car 2 blocks away, a nondescript sedan with clean plates. He got Alara into the passenger seat, then slid behind the wheel. His leg was bleeding through his pants now, making the clutch stick. You're hurt, Alara said. I'm fine. You're bleeding all over the car. I said I'm fine. She reached over, touched his thigh. He flinched, Her hand came away red. Adrian, after we get you safe, he said. After the baby's safe. Then I'll worry about a bullet graze. He started driving, heading north toward the safe house. The city slid past, dark and wet and dangerous. Somewhere out there, Marcus was regrouping, planning, preparing to finish this. Tell me about the last 6 months, Alara said quietly. Tell me what I missed. Adrian kept his eyes on the road. What do you want to know? Everything. What you did. Who you became. The man who walked into that diner. He wasn't the man I married. No, Adrian agreed. He wasn't. So tell me about him. And because they had 20 minutes, and because she deserved the truth, Adrian told her. He told her about the funeral, about hunting down the people he thought had killed her, about what he'd done to them in those warehouses. He told her about the deals he'd made, the territories he'd taken, the people who'd crossed him and disappeared. He told her about becoming the ghost everyone feared. Alara listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Do you regret it? She finally asked. Which part? Any of it. All of it. Adrian thought about that. I regret that it happened. I don't regret surviving it. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Another contraction. Alara gripped the dashboard, breathing through it. When it passed, she said, I used to think I knew who you were, who we were together, but I'm not sure anymore. I'm not sure either, Adrian admitted. 6 months ago, I had a plan. Get out, go legitimate, build something clean with you. Now, I don't know if that's even possible. Because of Marcus. Because of what I became without you. He took a turn too fast, corrected. Because I'm good at this, Alara. The violence, the strategy, the ruthlessness. I'm better at it than I ever wanted to be. And I don't know if I can just walk away from that. Even for your family? The word hit him hard. Family. A concept that had died with her, that was suddenly, impossibly alive again. I don't know, he said honestly. They drove in silence after that. The safe house appeared ahead, a warehouse converted into lofts, unremarkable from the outside. Adrian pulled into the underground garage, killed the engine. Dr. Raymond Chen was waiting by the elevator. 60 years old, calm eyes, hands that had stitched up more bullet wounds than Adrian could count. Bring her, he said. Adrian helped Alara out of the car. She could barely walk now, the contractions coming faster. Chen took one look at her and his expression tightened. How far along? 7 months. Contractions? Every 5 minutes. Get her upstairs, now. They rode the elevator to the 3rd floor. The loft was sterile, equipped like a field hospital. Chen had clearly been expecting this. He got Alara onto an exam table, started checking vitals. Adrian stood back, useless, his leg bleeding and his mind racing. The baby's in distress, Chen said after a moment. Heart rates elevated. She needs to deliver soon or we risk complications. Can you do it here? Adrian asked. Chen looked at him. I can try, but if something goes wrong, nothing goes wrong. Adrian, I'm good, but I'm not a miracle worker. If the baby's lungs aren't developed, if there are complications with the placenta, can you do it or not? Chen's jaw tightened. I can do it, but you need to understand the risks. Adrian looked at Alara. She was pale, shaking, terrified, but she nodded. Do it, she said. Please. Chen started prepping. Adrian moved to Alara's side, took her hand. I'm right here, he said. I'm not going anywhere. Promise me something. Her grip was crushing. If it comes down to choosing, it won't. Adrian, promise me. If you have to choose between me and the baby, I'm not making that choice. You're both making it through this. Another contraction. She screamed. Chen was setting up equipment, moving with practiced efficiency. I need you to stay calm, he told Alara. I need you to breathe through the contractions. Can you do that? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. Adrian, Chen gestured to the corner. I need you to clean and dress that leg. You're no good to her if you pass out from blood loss. Adrian didn't want to leave her side, but Chen was right. He moved to the medical supplies, found bandages and antiseptic. The bullet had gone clean through his calf muscle. Painful, but not fatal. He cleaned it, packed it, wrapped it tight. By the time he was done, Alara was fully in labor. The next hour was the longest of Adrian's life.
He held Alara's hand while she screamed and pushed. Chen worked with steady focus, monitoring both her and the baby. At one point, the baby's heart rate dropped dangerously low, and Chen had to make a call about whether to do an emergency C-section. No time, he decided. She's crowning. We push through. And they did. Alara pushed with everything she had left, tears and sweat and blood, while Adrian whispered encouragement and Chen guided the delivery. At 3:47 a.m., in an underground loft in the industrial district, with rain hammering against the windows and half the criminal underworld hunting them, their son was born. He came out blue and silent. Chen worked quickly, suctioning his airway, rubbing his chest. 5 seconds, 10, 15. Then a thin, angry wail cut through the room. He's breathing, Chen said. Lungs sound good. Heart rate stabilizing. He placed the baby on Alara's chest. She sobbed, wrapping her arms around him. Hi, she whispered. Hi, baby. Hi. Adrian stared at them. His wife, his son, his family. The things he'd thought were lost forever, now real and bloody and perfect in front of him. Congratulations, Chen said quietly. You have a healthy baby boy. Adrian couldn't speak, could barely breathe. He reached out with a shaking hand and touched his son's tiny fingers. The baby's hand closed around his thumb reflexively. He's beautiful, Alara said. She looked up at Adrian with red-rimmed eyes. He has your nose. Poor kid, Adrian managed. She laughed. Exhausted, broken, but real. We need to name him. We have time. No. She was firm. We name him now. In case we don't get another chance. Adrian understood. In case Marcus found them. In case this moment was all they got. What do you want to call him? He asked. Alara looked down at their son. Something strong. Something that means he survived. They sat with it for a moment. The baby made small sounds, adjusting to the world. Phoenix, Adrian said. It means rebirth from ashes. Alara's eyes filled with fresh tears. Phoenix? Yes. Chen cleared his throat. I hate to interrupt, but we need to talk about next steps. The baby's premature but stable. Your wife needs rest and monitoring. You need to stay here at least 48 hours before you even think about moving them. Marcus will find us before then. Then you need a plan. Adrian looked at his family, his wife holding their newborn son, both of them exhausted and vulnerable and dependent on him to keep them safe. The rage that had been building since the diner crystallized into something cold and focused. I have a plan, he said. The plan was simple, brutal, but simple. While Alara and Phoenix rested, Adrian made calls. Not to his usual network, Marcus had compromised that. To the people Marcus didn't know about. The off-the-books contacts. The ones who owed Adrian blood debts instead of money. By dawn, he had a team assembled. 6 men, all specialists, all loyal to him personally rather than the organization. Marcus Hale has betrayed me, Adrian told them via secure video call. He faked my wife's death, manipulated me for 6 months, and tried to have her killed tonight. I want him found. I want to know every location he uses, every person he trusts, every move he makes. And then? One of the men asked. And then I'm going to end him. But first he needed to send a message. Something that would make Marcus react emotionally instead of strategically. Something that would draw him out. Adrian made one more call. To a reporter he'd paid off years ago. I have a story for you, he said, about Adrian Voss and his wife who came back from the dead. The story broke online within 2 hours. Photos of Alara, current ones that Adrian provided, showing her alive and clearly pregnant. A statement from Adrian declaring that his wife had been found alive after months of being held captive by traitors within his own organization. A promise that justice would be served. It was a calculated risk. It put a target on Alara's back, but it also made her a public figure. Harder to make disappear. And more importantly, it would enrage Marcus, make him sloppy. Adrian watched the story spread across news sites and social media. Within 3 hours, it had gone viral. The ghost of the underworld's wife returned from the grave. His phone started ringing. Allies. Enemies. People wanting confirmation, wanting to exploit the situation, wanting to pick sides in what was clearly about to become a war. Adrian ignored all of them except one number. You've made a mistake. Marcus's voice was tight with barely controlled fury. Have I? Adrian kept his voice calm. I just told the truth. You've exposed us. Expose the organization. Do you have any idea what kind of attention this brings?
I know exactly what it brings. It brings every eye in the city watching you, makes it harder for you to operate, harder for you to make people disappear. You think you're clever. Marcus's voice dropped. You think you've won, but you've just painted a target on your entire family. Come and take your shot then. I'll be waiting. Adrian hung up. Alara was awake, nursing Phoenix. She looked exhausted, but the color had returned to her face. I saw the news, she said quietly. Are you angry? I don't know what I am. She adjusted the baby. You used us as bait. I used us as shields. There's a difference. Is there? Adrian sat on the edge of the bed. Marcus operates in shadows. I brought everything into the light. Now he can't touch you without every law enforcement agency in the city asking questions. And what about you? I'm already a target, have been for years. Phoenix made a small sound. Alara soothed him automatically. The gesture was so natural, so maternal, that it made Adrian's chest ache. I missed 6 months of this, he said. 6 months of you being pregnant, doctor's appointments, ultrasounds, feeling him kick. Marcus took that from us. I know. I can't get that back. I know. She looked up at him. So what happens now? Now we wait for him to make his move, and when he does, the window exploded. Adrian threw himself over Alara and the baby as glass rained down. Gunfire erupted. Chen dove for cover. Adrian's security team returned fire from positions around the loft. It was a full assault. Marcus had found them faster than Adrian had anticipated. The man had resources, had people, had been planning this for longer than Adrian realized. Stay down, Adrian shouted. He pulled Alara and Phoenix off the bed, got them behind the heavy medical equipment. Don't move! He grabbed a gun from Chen's emergency stash and moved to a window. 3 cars outside, armed men advancing. Professional, coordinated. This wasn't Marcus's usual crew. He'd brought in outside contractors, which meant he was serious about ending this tonight. Adrian's phone buzzed, a text from one of his men. Back entrance compromised. They have the building surrounded. They were trapped. Adrian looked back at Alara, clutching Phoenix to her chest, both of them terrified. Looked at Chen, an old man who'd saved lives and didn't deserve to die in a gang war. Looked at his security team, good men who'd followed him into hell. Then he looked at the medical supplies Chen had brought, at the propane tanks for the backup generator, at the structure of the loft itself, old, wooden, a fire trap waiting to happen. An idea formed, desperate, dangerous, but it might work. Chen, Adrian called over the gunfire. Where's your emergency exit? Service tunnel leads to the next building over. But they'll have it covered. They'll have it covered now. But they won't in 5 minutes. Adrian was already moving, gathering supplies. I need you to take Alara and Phoenix through the tunnel. Get them to your secondary location. What are you going to do? Buy you time. Alara understood immediately. No. Adrian, no. There's no other way. He knelt beside her, cupped her face. I can't protect you and fight them, but I can give you a head start. You'll die. Maybe. He kissed her forehead. But you and Phoenix will live. That's what matters. Don't you dare. She was crying. Don't you dare make me lose you again. I'll find you, he promised. No matter what happens here, I'll find you, but you need to go now. Chen was already gathering essentials, preparing to move. Adrian's men were falling back, conserving ammunition. There's an account, Adrian said. He pulled out his phone, showed Alara numbers. Offshore, clean, 50 million. Passcode is Phoenix's birthday. Adrian, take it. Build a life. If I don't make it, stop talking like that. If I don't make it, he continued, promise me you'll give Phoenix a real childhood. Not this. Not the life I lived. She was sobbing now, holding their son with one hand and gripping Adrian's shirt with the other. I can't do this without you. You can. You did for 6 months. He gently pried her fingers loose. Now go. Chen helped her up. She was still weak from the delivery, moving slowly. Adrian's heart broke watching her, but he forced himself to turn away. He had work to do. Once they were in the tunnel, Adrian gathered his men. Everyone out. Follow them. Protect them with your lives. What about you, boss? I'm redecorating. They understood. Started filing into the tunnel. Adrian waited until they were gone, then got to work. He opened all the propane tanks, let the gas fill the space. Piled medical supplies soaked in alcohol near strategic points, set timers on his phone. The attacking force was being cautious now, maybe sensing a trap. They were right to be worried. Adrian made his way to the service tunnel, but he didn't run. He walked, bleeding and limping, leaving a clear trail, making sure Marcus's people saw him retreat. They followed. Of course they did. Adrian reached the end of the tunnel just as his phone alarm went off. He pressed the detonator. The explosion was massive. The entire loft went up, propane and alcohol and old wood creating an inferno. The shockwave knocked Adrian off his feet. Behind him, the tunnel entrance collapsed. Screams echoed as Marcus's assault team was caught in the blast. Not all of them. Some would make it out, but enough would die to make Marcus reconsider his approach. Adrian picked himself up and kept moving through the darkness, following the path Chen had taken. His ears were ringing, his leg was screaming, but Alara and Phoenix were alive, and that was all that mattered. He emerged in an adjacent building's basement. Chen was waiting with a car. "Your family's safe," the doctor said. "Took them to location 3. You should get in." "I'm not going there yet." Adrian was already pulling out his phone. "I need to end this tonight." "You can barely walk." "I've walked through worse." He made a call. One of his remaining loyal contacts answered on the first ring. "Tell me you found him," Adrian said. "We found him. He's at the old textile factory, your old territory. He's making a stand." Of course, Marcus would choose familiar ground, the place where he and Adrian had started building the organization. Symbolic. How many men? 20, maybe 25? Against Adrian alone, bad odds, terrible odds. "Good," Adrian said. "Send me the coordinates." He hung up and looked at Chen. "I need more ammunition, and something for the pain." "Adrian, you're in no condition. Marcus put a gun to my family. He doesn't get to walk away from that." Chen stared at him for a long moment. Then he opened the car's trunk and pulled out a black bag. Inside, guns, ammunition, medical supplies, and a syringe. "Local anesthetic," Chen said. "Will kill the pain in your leg for about 2 hours. After that, you'll crash hard." 2 hours is all I need." Chen injected the leg. Almost immediately, the pain faded. Adrian tested his weight. Better. Not good, but functional. He loaded weapons, checked magazines, became the ghost again. "Tell Alara I love her," he said. "Tell her I'm sorry for all of this. Tell her yourself when you survive." "If I survive." "When?" Chen's voice was firm. "You have a son now. You don't get to die." Adrian smiled grimly. "I'll do my best." He took the car and drove toward the textile factory, toward Marcus, toward the end of everything. The rain had stopped. Dawn was breaking over the city, pale and cold. Adrian's phone buzzed one last time. A message from Alara. "Come back to us. Please." Below it, a photo. Her holding Phoenix, both of them safe in Chen's secondary location. Adrian saved the image. Then he checked his guns one more time and kept driving toward the war that was waiting for him. But that was a fight for another morning. For now, he had given his family a chance, had bought them time, had proven that the ghost could still bleed, could still feel, could still love. It would have to be enough. The textile factory rose from the industrial wasteland like a monument to decay. Adrian pulled the car into an alley 3 blocks away, killed the engine, and sat in the silence that followed. His hands were steady on the steering wheel. That was good. Steady hands meant the anesthetic was working, meant his body hadn't realized yet how badly damaged it was. He checked his weapons one more time. 2 handguns, spare magazines, a tactical knife strapped to his ankle. Not enough firepower to take on 25 men in a fortified position, but Adrian had never relied on superior numbers. He relied on being willing to go further than anyone else in the room. The phone buzzed. "Chen, your family is secure. She's asking about you." Adrian didn't respond. What could he say? That he was about to walk into a slaughter? That he might not make it back? She already knew that. They both did. He got out of the car and started walking. The factory was surrounded by chain-link fence, rusted and sagging. Security cameras had been installed recently. Marcus's addition. Adrian could see at least 6 armed guards patrolling the perimeter. Professional setup. Marcus had planned for this. Adrian circled the building once, staying in the shadows, cataloging entry points and guard positions. The main entrance was heavily fortified. Side doors were locked and probably wired.
But the old loading dock in the back, that was his way in. He'd used it himself years ago when they were first starting out, before the organization had money for real security. He moved closer, staying low. 2 guards stood near the loading dock, smoking and talking quietly. Adrian recognized one of them, Tommy Riggs, used to run numbers in the East District. The other was a stranger, probably new muscle Marcus had brought in. Adrian waited until they were looking away, then crossed the open ground in 3 seconds flat. By the time they turned back, he had Tommy in a chokehold with the knife pressed against the stranger's throat. "Don't," Adrian said quietly. "Don't make a sound." Tommy went still. The stranger started to struggle, then felt the knife break skin and thought better of it. "Where is he?" Adrian asked. "Top floor?" Tommy wheezed. "Old office suite. He's got 12 guys up there with him, another dozen scattered through the building." "Explosives?" "Claymores at the main stairs, tripwires on the second-floor landing." Adrian filed that away. "Anyone else coming?" "Reinforcements in 30 minutes. Maybe less." Which meant Adrian had a narrow window. He squeezed Tommy's carotid until the man went limp, then drove his elbow into the stranger's temple. Both guards dropped. Adrian zip-tied their hands, gagged them, and dragged them into the shadows. The loading dock door was unlocked. Careless. Marcus was getting arrogant, relying too much on his numbers. Adrian slipped inside and let his eyes adjust to the darkness. The factory floor was exactly as he remembered, vast and empty, support columns rising to a ceiling lost in shadow. Moonlight filtered through broken windows, creating patches of light and dark. Adrian moved through it like a ghost, his footsteps silent on concrete. He found the service stairs in the northeast corner. No guards, no cameras. Marcus had focused his security on the main routes, forgetting that Adrian knew this building as well as he did. They'd built their empire from this place, had made their first real money running guns through this very floor. Adrian started climbing. The anesthetic was holding, but he could feel his body starting to rebel. Blood loss, exhaustion, the crash that would come when the drugs wore off. He pushed it down. Just needed to last another hour. The second floor was darker, more enclosed. Storage rooms and administrative offices, most of them stripped bare. Adrian moved carefully, watching for the tripwires Tommy had mentioned. He found the first one stretched across a doorway, attached to what looked like a homemade explosive. Crude, but effective. He stepped over it and kept moving. Voices ahead. 2 men, talking about sports and complaining about the early morning shift. Adrian came around the corner fast, fired twice. Both men dropped before they could react. He dragged their bodies into a storage closet and took their radio. "Delta Team, report," a voice crackled through. Adrian waited. The voice repeated the request, more urgent this time. He just started a timer. Marcus would know someone was in the building now. Time to move faster. He found the main stairs and paused, studying the setup. The claymores were obvious, 2 of them positioned to turn the stairwell into a kill zone. But the wiring was sloppy, done in a hurry. Adrian traced the detonation cord back to a pressure plate hidden under loose carpeting. He smiled grimly. Marcus had always been good at strategy, terrible at execution. That's why he'd kept Adrian around, to handle the details he couldn't be bothered with. Adrian bypassed the pressure plate and carefully disconnected the claymores. Then he climbed the stairs 3 at a time, his injured legs screaming despite the drugs. The 3rd floor opened into what used to be the executive offices. Now it was Marcus's war room. Adrian could hear voices, footsteps, the click of weapons being checked. He counted at least 8 distinct speakers, plus Marcus made 9. The others would be positioned in defensive points throughout the floor. Not great odds. But Adrian had survived worse. He pulled out his phone and sent a single text to one of his remaining contacts. Execute. 30 seconds later, every light in the factory went out. Someone shouted in surprise. Flashlights clicked on, beams cutting through the darkness. Adrian used the confusion to move, slipping past 2 guards who were too focused on the power outage to notice the shadow behind them. He found a janitor's closet and crouched inside, listening to the controlled chaos. Marcus's voice cut through, calm and commanding. "Everyone stay at your positions. It's just a power interruption." "Could be Voss," another voice said. If it's Voss, he's already dead. He's 1 man against 20 of us." He took out Delta Team. "Then we're down to 18. Still good odds." Marcus sounded almost amused. "Spread out, overlapping fields of fire. He has to come through one of the main corridors. When he does, we end this." Adrian listened to them repositioning, creating a defensive perimeter. It was textbook tactics, which meant it was predictable. He moved again, this time heading away from the main offices. There was an old ventilation shaft in the northwest corner, too small for most men, but Adrian had always been lean. He pried open the grate and squeezed inside. The shaft ran parallel to the executive suite, with vents looking down into the offices. Adrian crawled through rust and dust, his elbows scraping metal, until he was directly above Marcus's position. Through the vent slats, he could see his former lieutenant sitting at an old desk, bathed in battery-powered lamplight. Marcus was on his phone, speaking quietly. "Needs to be clean. No connection to me. If the authorities start asking questions, I was never here." A pause, while whoever was on the other end responded. "I don't care about the cost. Adrian Voss dies tonight, and his wife and child disappear, permanently this time." Marcus's voice hardened. "I won't make the same mistake twice." Adrian's hands tightened on his gun, his wife, his child. Marcus was still planning to kill them, even after everything that had happened tonight. "The story's already all over the news," Marcus continued. "We need to move fast before the authorities get too interested. I have a cleanup crew standing by. Once Voss is handled, they'll take care of the rest." More listening. "Yes, I understand the complications, but I didn't build this organization by being cautious. Sometimes you have to take risks." A cold laugh. "Besides, with Adrian gone, there's no one left who can challenge my authority. The Empire becomes mine, completely." Adrian lined up his shot through the vent, one bullet, center mass. It would be over in a second. His finger touched the trigger, then stopped. Because killing Marcus quickly wouldn't be enough. Wouldn't make him pay for 6 months of grief, for Alara's terror, for the hours she'd spent in labor believing her husband wanted her dead. A quick death was too merciful. Adrian wanted Marcus to suffer. He pulled back from the vent and kept crawling, found an access panel that led to a maintenance catwalk suspended from the ceiling. He dropped down onto it carefully, the metal creaking under his weight. One of Marcus's men heard it. "What was that?" "Probably rats," another responded. "This whole building's infested." Adrian moved along the catwalk until he was positioned above the main corridor. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. The phone in Marcus's office started ringing. "Don't answer it," someone said. "It's my private line. Only 3 people have this number." Marcus picked up. "Yes?" "2 of those people are dead," Adrian's voice came through. "Guess that narrows it down." Marcus went very still. Around him, his men raised their weapons, scanning the darkness. "Adrian, I was starting to think you'd chickened out." Interesting choice of words from a man who's been hiding behind his soldiers all night. "I'm not hiding. I'm being strategic. Unlike you, charging in here like some action movie hero." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "How's the leg, by the way?" "Looked like a nasty wound." "I've had worse." "I'm sure you have. 6 months ago, you took a crowbar to the knees of the man who supposedly killed your wife. Broke both his legs in 14 places. That was creative." Adrian's jaw tightened. "He deserved it. He was innocent. I set him up. Gave you a target so you'd have somewhere to channel all that grief." Marcus smiled. "Worked beautifully, didn't it? You became exactly what I needed you to be. A monster. A leader. There's a difference." Marcus stood up, started pacing. "You were always too soft, Adrian. Always worried about civilians, about collateral damage, about doing the right thing. That kind of thinking has no place in our world." "Then maybe I was never meant for your world." "Oh, but you were. You just needed the right motivation." Marcus gestured to one of his men, who started moving toward the corridor. "I gave you that. I gave you purpose. You took my wife from me. I liberated you from a weakness, and it worked. Look what you accomplished. The territories we took, the revenue we generated, the fear we instilled. You did that. The real you, not the version playing house with some girl." Adrian watched the soldier moving below him. "Alara's not some girl. She's my wife." "She's a liability. Always has been." Marcus's voice hardened. "She made you question things. Made you think about getting out, going legitimate. I couldn't have that." "So you tried to kill her." "I tried to remove an obstacle. If she'd just stayed dead like she was supposed to, none of this would be necessary." The soldier was directly below Adrian now. He dropped from the catwalk, landing on the man's shoulders. They went down hard. Adrian drove his knife into the man's throat before he could scream, then rolled into the shadows as gunfire erupted. Bullets sparked off metal where he'd been standing. Adrian was already moving, using the support columns for cover. "You're just delaying the inevitable," Marcus called out. "You're outnumbered and injured. Surrender now, and I'll make it quick." Adrian didn't answer. He circled around, taking out another guard with a headshot, then ducked into an office as return fire chewed through the door frame. "Did you really think you could win this?" Marcus continued. "You taught me everything I know about tactics. I know how you think." Adrian checked his ammunition, running low. He needed to change the dynamic, force Marcus off balance. He pulled out the radio he'd taken earlier and keyed it to broadcast. "Everyone hear this? Marcus is planning to cut your pay after tonight. Told his contact on the phone that he's bringing in cheaper muscle." Silence. Then confused murmuring from the guards. "Don't listen to him," Marcus snapped. "He's trying to divide us. He's also planning to pin everything on you if the cops come asking questions. I heard him say it. You're all expendable." More murmuring, louder now. Trust was a fragile thing in their world. Adrian had just introduced doubt. "Anyone who kills Adrian gets $1 million bonus," Marcus announced. "Cash tonight, no questions." That would work too. Money talked louder than doubt. Adrian moved again, heading deeper into the office complex. He needed a better position, somewhere he could control the engagement. Found a corner office with windows on two sides and a single entrance. Not ideal, but defensible. He overturned a desk for cover and waited. They came in a rush. 3 men, weapons raised. Adrian fired twice, dropped 2 of them. The third got off a shot that splintered wood inches from Adrian's head before Adrian's return fire caught him in the chest. Silence fell again. 17 left, Adrian called out. "Any of them want to walk away while they still can?" No answer. "Loyalty's expensive, Marcus. How much are you paying these guys to die for you?" "More than you ever paid me." Marcus's voice was closer now, moving through the floor. "You always were cheap with the bonuses." Adrian reloaded, his hands moving automatically despite the exhaustion creeping in. The anesthetic was starting to fade. He could feel the pain in his leg returning, dull but building. "Tell me something," he said. "When did you decide to do it? When did you decide to betray me?" A long pause. Then Marcus answered, and he sounded almost thoughtful. "About a year ago. You came back from that dinner with Alara, and you were different, softer. You told me you were thinking about stepping back, maybe letting me run the day-to-day operations. I was trying to promote you. You were trying to retire, to walk away from everything we'd built and leave me holding the bag." Anger crept into Marcus's voice. "I spent 10 years in your shadow, 10 years watching you make decisions, watching you get the credit, watching everyone treat you like you were something special, and you were going to just walk away? So you killed my wife out of jealousy?" "I removed an obstacle, there's a difference." Marcus was moving again, his footsteps deliberate. "And it worked. You became focused, ruthless, everything I needed you to be while I positioned myself to take over. You were planning a coup. I was planning a transition of power. You would have died eventually. Car accident, heart attack, something clean, and I would have taken over with everyone's blessing." A bitter laugh. "But then you had to find her. Had to ruin everything." Adrian shifted position, trying to track Marcus's voice. "You know what the funny thing is? I was actually proud of you 6 months ago. Thought you'd finally stepped up." "I did step up, just not the way you wanted. You became a snake. I became what this business requires. Someone willing to make the hard choices without sentimentality getting in the way." Adrian's leg gave out. He caught himself against the desk, pain shooting through the injury. The anesthetic was wearing off fast now. He had maybe 20 minutes before his body shut down completely. Time to end this. He pulled a flare from his tactical vest, something Chen had included in the gear bag, cracked it, and threw it into the corridor. Bright red light flooded the space. Marcus's men reacted instinctively, turning toward the sudden illumination. Adrian moved in the opposite direction, slipping through a connecting office, came up behind 2 guards and took them both down with his knife. Quiet. Efficient. 15 left. He kept moving, using the flare's distraction to reposition, found a supply closet with a clear sightline to the main corridor, settled in, and waited. Marcus's voice crackled through the radio. "Stop playing games, Adrian. This only ends one way." "You're right." Adrian keyed the radio. "Question is, which one of us is walking out of here?" "I am. Because I have backup coming. Because I have resources. Because I planned for this." "You planned for a lot of things. But you missed one detail." "What's that?" "You're not as smart as you think you are. Adrian dropped the radio and focused on breathing through the pain. His leg was on fire now, each heartbeat sending fresh agony through the wound. Blood was seeping through the bandage, leaving a trail. 2 guards moved past the closet. Adrian let them go, conserving strength, picking his moments. His phone buzzed. Chen, your vitals are dropping, heart rate erratic, you need medical attention. Adrian had forgotten about the tracker Chen had slipped into his vest, probably monitoring him remotely, watching him fall apart in real time. He texted back one-handed. How long do I have? At your current rate of blood loss? 30 minutes, maybe less. Adrian looked at his watch. Reinforcements would arrive in 15, which meant he needed to finish this in 10. He emerged from the closet and started moving toward Marcus's position. No more stealth, no more tactics, just forward momentum and the certainty that if he was dying anyway, he was taking Marcus with him. A guard spotted him. He's here! Northwest corridor! Gunfire erupted. Adrian returned fire as he advanced, not bothering with cover. A bullet grazed his shoulder. Another punched through his vest but got stopped by the trauma plate. He kept moving. 2 guards went down. Then 3. Adrian's gun clicked empty. He dropped it and pulled his backup weapon, not breaking stride. Stop him! Marcus's voice had lost its calm edge. Someone stop him! More guards poured into the corridor. Adrian shot the first 2, then the third caught him with a round to the ribs. He felt something crack, probably broken. Didn't matter. He was close now. Could see Marcus through the doorway ahead, backing up, reaching for his own weapon. Adrian crashed through the door just as Marcus raised his gun. They fired simultaneously. Marcus's shot went wide. Adrian's caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Marcus hit the floor hard. His gun skittered away. Adrian advanced, his vision starting to tunnel from blood loss. Adrian, wait. Marcus held up a hand. Wait, we can talk about this. We're done talking. I can give you information. Names, locations, offshore accounts. Everything you need to rebuild. Adrian stood over him, gun pointed at Marcus's head. His hand was shaking now. Blood dripped from his wounds onto the floor. You took 6 months from me, Adrian said quietly. 6 months I could have spent with my wife, with my unborn son. You made me into something I hate, made her live in terror, made her think I wanted her dead. I made you strong. You made me miserable. Adrian's finger tightened on the trigger. And now you're going to pay for it. If you kill me, the organization tears itself apart. Everyone I've positioned, everyone loyal to me, they'll come after you, after your family. Let them try. Adrian, think about this. Think about your wife, your son. They need you alive. They need you. Don't! Adrian's voice cracked. Don't you dare talk about my family. You lost that right when you tried to kill them. Marcus's eyes hardened. The pleading facade dropped away, replaced by cold calculation. You won't do it. You're too soft. That's always been your problem. Maybe 6 months ago. Adrian's hand steadied. But you fixed that, remember? You made me into exactly what you needed. Realization dawned in Marcus's eyes. Adrian. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Marcus's body went limp. Blood pooled beneath him. Adrian stood there for a long moment, watching the life fade from the man who'd been his right hand, his trusted lieutenant, his friend. Then his leg gave out completely. Adrian collapsed beside Marcus's corpse, his gun clattering away. The remaining guards burst into the room, weapons raised, but they stopped when they saw the scene. Adrian bleeding out, Marcus dead, the empire they'd both built now leaderless. One of the guards stepped forward. Rodriguez had been with them for 8 years. Boss, you need a medic. I need you to stand down, Adrian managed. All of you. It's over. We can get you to a hospital. No hospitals. No doctors. Adrian pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Just give me 5 minutes. Rodriguez hesitated, then nodded to the others. They lowered their weapons. Adrian called Chen. I need an extraction. Textile factory, top floor. Your vitals are critical. You might not have... Just get here. He hung up and looked at Rodriguez. Marcus was planning to cut you loose, all of you. Had a cleanup crew ready to eliminate anyone who could connect him to what happened tonight. Rodriguez exchanged glances with the other guards. Is that true? Check his phone, recent calls, you'll see. Adrian coughed, tasted blood. He used all of us, made us into weapons and planned to throw us away when we were no longer useful. One of the guards picked up Marcus's phone, scrolled through the calls. His face went pale. He's right. There's texts here about a cleanup operation. Names, locations. Christ, we're all on the list. The men started murmuring, anger replacing loyalty. Adrian had seen this before. Once trust broke in their world, it shattered completely. So what now? Rodriguez asked. You're in charge? Adrian laughed, which turned into another coughing fit. I'm dying. Not really leadership material.
Then who? No one. The organization's done. Marcus poisoned it, turned it into something that needs to die. Adrian looked at each of them. You want my advice? Take what you can carry and disappear. Find new lives. Be better than we were. Just walk away? Best decision I never got to make. Sirens in the distance. Someone had called the police. The firefight had been too loud, too public. The whole thing was falling apart. You should go, Adrian said, before they get here.
The guards looked at each other. Then one by one, they started leaving. Taking weapons, grabbing cash from Marcus's safe, vanishing into the pre-dawn darkness. Rodriguez stayed. You sure about this, boss? I'm sure about nothing anymore. But I'm done building empires on blood. What about your family? They're safe. That's all that matters. Adrian closed his eyes. Everything else is just details. Rodriguez knelt beside him. For what it's worth, you were better than him. You had a conscience. A lot of good that did. Maybe. But at least you can live with yourself. He stood up and headed for the door. Paused at the threshold. Good luck, boss. You too. Then Adrian was alone with Marcus's corpse and the spreading pool of his own blood. He tried to stay conscious, to hold on until Chen arrived, but the darkness was closing in fast. His phone buzzed, a message from Alara. Phoenix won't stop crying. I think he knows something's wrong. Please, tell me you're okay. Adrian typed with numb fingers. I'm coming home. Tell him Daddy's coming home. But he wasn't sure if he believed it. The extraction team found him 10 minutes later. Chen took one look and started barking orders. IV lines, pressure bandages, emergency medications. They loaded Adrian onto a stretcher and carried him down the stairs, past the bodies, through the carnage he'd created. Outside, police lights were converging. Chen's team moved fast, getting Adrian into an unmarked van before the authorities could establish a perimeter. Am I dying? Adrian asked as they worked on him. Not if I have anything to say about it. Chen was setting up a portable blood transfusion. But you've lost a lot of blood. The next few hours are critical. Adrian felt the van start moving. Where are we going? Same place as your family. I've got a full surgical setup there. Marcus? Dead according to my team. Is it over? Adrian thought about that. Marcus was dead, but the organization still existed. The territory, the contacts, the infrastructure, all of it was still out there, waiting for someone to claim it. In a few days, maybe a week, other players would move in, start carving up what he and Marcus had built. It's over for me, he said. Chen nodded and focused on keeping him alive. The van drove for 20 minutes, taking random turns to ensure they weren't followed. Adrian drifted in and out of consciousness. At one point, he opened his eyes and saw Chen on the phone, speaking urgently in Mandarin. Medical terms, probably coordinating with whoever was waiting at the destination. Then darkness again. When he woke next, they were carrying him into what looked like a converted warehouse. Industrial on the outside, state-of-the-art medical facility on the inside. Chen had clearly been preparing for this, had built a complete underground hospital for exactly this kind of emergency. Alara, Adrian managed. I need to see her. After surgery, you've got a bullet lodged near your spine. We need to remove it before it causes permanent damage. How long? 2 hours? Maybe 3. Tell her I'm alive. Tell her... He lost the words as they pushed him through double doors into an operating room. The last thing he saw before the anesthesia took him was Chen's determined face. The last thing he thought about was Phoenix's photo on his phone. Then, nothing. Adrian woke to pain. Not the sharp agony of being shot, but the deep, grinding ache of a body that had been opened up and put back together. He tried to move and couldn't. Restraints, medical, not hostile. Easy, Chen's voice. You're safe. Surgery went well. Adrian's eyes focused slowly. He was in a recovery room, surrounded by monitors. Daylight filtered through a small window. How long had he been out? 8 hours, Chen said, reading his expression. I had to repair significant tissue damage. You're lucky the bullet didn't sever your spinal cord.
Alara?
She's here. Been waiting outside since we brought you in.
The baby?
Healthy. I've been monitoring both of them. Chen started checking Adrian's vitals. You want to see them? Adrian nodded. Chen left and returned a moment later with Alara. She was still pale, still exhausted, but her eyes lit up when she saw Adrian awake. You bastard, she said and started crying. You stupid, reckless bastard. I'm sorry. You promised you'd come back. You promised, and then you almost died. But I didn't. Adrian tried to reach for her hand, but the restraints held him back. I'm here. She moved closer, took his hand in both of hers. Chen told me what you did. How you walked into a building with 25 armed men. 24. I took one out before going inside. That's not funny. Little bit funny. She pressed her forehead against his hand. I thought I'd lost you again. When Chen came back without you, when he told me you needed emergency surgery. I'm sorry, Adrian said again. I'm sorry for all of it. For not protecting you 6 months ago. For becoming someone you didn't recognize. For making you live in fear. Is Marcus dead? Yes. Good. The venom in her voice surprised him. I'm glad. I'm glad you killed him. Adrian studied her face. You never used to talk like that. I never used to sleep in my car while 7 months pregnant either. People change. She squeezed his hand tighter. Is it really over? The immediate threat, yes. But the organization still exists. Other people will try to take control. Let them. We're getting out. It's not that simple. There are people who'll see us as loose ends. They'll come after. Then we run. We disappear. We become different people. She looked at him intently. Unless you want to stay. Unless you want to rebuild what Marcus destroyed. Adrian thought about the textile factory. About the bodies he'd left behind. About Marcus's blood on his hands. No, he said. I'm done. I just need to make sure it's safe for us to leave. How long will that take? Few weeks, maybe a month. He saw her expression fall. I know it's not ideal. A month with people hunting us? With a newborn? I'll make it secure. There are still people loyal to me, people Marcus didn't turn. I'll reach out, set up protections, make sure… Adrian. She cut him off. I need you to understand something. I spent 6 months terrified, 6 months looking over my shoulder, 6 months thinking every stranger might be the one sent to kill me. I can't do that anymore. I won't do that to Phoenix. What are you saying? I'm saying we leave now. Today. We take the money you mentioned and we disappear completely. New names, new lives, new everything. Without tying up loose ends. Your loose ends almost got you killed. Her voice hardened. They almost made your son grow up without a father. So yes, without tying them up. We cut and run. Adrian wanted to argue. Wanted to explain that running without preparing was reckless, dangerous. But looking at her face, at the determination mixed with fear, he understood. She'd been running for 6 months. She was done waiting for permission to be safe. Okay, he said. Okay, we leave as soon as Chen clears me for travel. Adrian squeezed her hand. We disappear, become ghosts. Relief flooded her features. Thank you. But we do it smart. We plan the route, set up false trails, make it impossible to track us. How long will that take? With my contacts? 3 days. She hesitated, then nodded. 3 days. But then we're gone. Chen cleared his throat from the doorway. I hate to interrupt, but we have a situation. Adrian's body tensed. What kind of situation? The police raided the textile factory, found Marcus's body and evidence of a significant firefight. They're treating it as a gang war, which means they're going to start pulling on threads. Let them. I'm not there anymore. No, but your DNA is. Blood, fingerprints, you left a trail. Adrian cursed. He'd been too focused on survival to think about forensics. How long before they connect it to me? Already have. Your name hit the wire an hour ago. They want you for questioning regarding Marcus Hale's murder. Alara's grip on his hand tightened. Can they prove anything? Not without a body, Chen said, which you currently are. As far as official records show, you're still recovering from your wife's death 6 months ago. Grief-stricken recluse hasn't been seen in public. Until the story broke about Alara being alive. Right, which complicates things. Chen pulled up a news feed on his tablet. The narrative is shifting. People are putting together that your wife's death was faked, that you were lied to, that you had motive to go after whoever was responsible. Adrian read the headlines. Mafia boss's wife returns from dead. Gang war erupts after betrayal revealed. Public sympathy grows for grieving husband. They're making me sympathetic, he said, surprised. Human interest angle. Devoted husband discovers his wife's alive, goes after the man who stole 6 months of their lives together. Chen shrugged. Makes for good television, but it also makes me a suspect in a murder investigation. Yes, which is why you need to disappear sooner rather than later. Alara looked between them. How soon? Tonight, Chen said. I can have you out of the city by midnight. I can't travel yet, Adrian protested. I just had surgery. You can travel, or you can get arrested. Your choice. Adrian knew Chen was right. The police would be tracing his known associates, his properties, his resources. It was only a matter of time before they found this location. What about you? He asked Chen. If they connect you to this, I'm already gone. This facility gets sterilized tonight, and I'm on a plane to Singapore by morning. Chen smiled slightly. I've been preparing my exit strategy for years. You're not the only one who wanted out. Thank you for everything. Thank your wife. She's the one who convinced me this was worth the risk. Chen nodded to Alara. I'll start preparing the extraction. You have 3 hours to say your goodbyes to this life. He left them alone. Alara sat on the edge of Adrian's bed. Are you scared? Terrified, he admitted. I've spent 15 years building a life here. Built it from nothing. And now I'm walking away with just whatever we can carry. We have each other. We have Phoenix. That's more than enough. Is it? She leaned down and kissed him, gentle, careful of his injuries. It has to be. 3 hours turned into 90 minutes when Chen burst back into the recovery room with his phone pressed to his ear and urgency written across his face. We need to move now, Chess, he said, already disconnecting Adrian's monitors. Police just hit 2 of your safe houses. They're working through a list. Adrian tried to sit up, and his entire torso screamed in protest. The surgical incisions pulled, fresh pain blooming across his abdomen. How much time do we have? If they're systematic? Maybe 4 hours? If someone talks? Could be 30 minutes. Chen was already preparing a mobile IV setup. I can keep you medicated during transport, but you're going to feel every bump in the road. I don't care about pain. Adrian swung his legs over the side of the bed, fighting dizziness. Where's Alara? Getting Phoenix ready. Your go bags are packed. Cash, documents, burner phones, everything you need for the first 48 hours. Alara appeared in the doorway, Phoenix bundled in her arms. The baby was sleeping, oblivious to the chaos surrounding his first days of life. She'd changed into dark jeans and a jacket, her hair pulled back. She looked like she was ready to run, like she'd been ready for months. Can he even walk? She asked Chen, looking at Adrian's pale face. Doesn't matter if he can or not. He has to. Chen finished setting up a portable pain medication drip. This will help, but Adrian, you need to understand, you're going to be compromised for at least a week, maybe longer. I've worked through worse. Not with a bullet wound near your spine, you haven't. Chen's voice was sharp. You push too hard, you risk permanent damage, paralysis. Adrian met his eyes. And if I stay here, I risk prison. Or worse, I risk them finding Alara and Phoenix. Chen nodded grimly. Then we move carefully. No heroics. The extraction vehicle was a medical transport van, the kind that moved patients between facilities. Unremarkable. Forgettable. Chen had even gotten fake hospital placards for the windows. Adrian was loaded onto a gurney, the IV pole secured beside him. Alara climbed in next to him, still holding Phoenix. Where are we going? She asked. First stop is a private airstrip 2 hours north, Chen explained as he climbed into the driver's seat. From there, you're on a cargo plane to Toronto. I have contacts there who will set you up with new documentation. Canada? Adrian shifted on the gurney, trying to find a position that didn't make his entire body throb. That's temporary, right? That's smart. Canada doesn't have the same extradition enthusiasm for organized crime cases, especially if there's public sympathy involved. You stay there 6 months, let things cool down, then we talk about next steps. The van pulled out into late afternoon traffic. Adrian watched the city slide past through the tinted windows. The city where he'd built an empire, where he'd met Alara, where he'd become someone he no longer recognized. Leaving felt like amputation, necessary, but brutal. Phoenix started fussing. Alara rocked him gently, murmuring soft words. Adrian watched them, struck by how natural she was at this. 6 months pregnant and alone, living in her car, and she'd still found a way to prepare for motherhood. "I should have been there," he said quietly. She looked up. "What?" "The pregnancy, the fear, all of it. I should have been there." "You didn't know I was alive." "Doesn't make it better." Adrian's hand found hers. "You went through hell alone because I failed to protect you." "Marcus failed us. Not you." She squeezed his fingers. "Stop carrying his sins." "Someone has to." "No, they don't." Her voice was firm. "Marcus made his choices. He hurt us. And now he's dead. That chapter's closed." But Adrian knew it wasn't that simple. The organization Marcus had helped build was still out there. The people they'd hurt, the enemies they'd made, the loose ends that could unravel everything, those didn't disappear just because the architect was dead. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Heard about Marcus. My condolences. We should talk about succession." Adrian deleted it without responding. Then another came through. "The Eastern Territory is up for grabs. I'm claiming it unless you object." Delete. Another. "Some of us think you got soft. Prove us wrong or step aside." He turned the phone off. "What is it?" Alara asked. "Vultures circling?" Adrian closed his eyes. "Give it 24 hours and they'll be tearing apart everything we built." "Good. Let them fight over the scraps." She adjusted Phoenix, who'd fallen back asleep. "You're not responsible for holding it together anymore." "Those people. Some of them were loyal, counted on the structure we created. And some of them were killers who deserve whatever's coming." Alara's voice was harder than he'd ever heard it. "You don't owe them anything, Adrian. Not after what you've lost." She was right, but that didn't make it easier. Adrian had spent 15 years building something. Even if it was built on violence and fear, it was still his creation. Watching it collapse felt like watching a part of himself die. Chen's voice cut through his thoughts. "We have a tail. Black sedan, 3 cars back. Been with us since we left the facility." Adrian's body tensed despite the pain medication. "Police?" "Don't think so. Wrong car. Wrong formation." Chen took a turn without signaling, watching the rearview mirror. "They're staying back. Professional." "One of Marcus's people?" "Could be. Could be someone making a move now that you're vulnerable." Another turn. The sedan stayed with them. "Either way, we need to lose them before we get to the airstrip." Alara pulled Phoenix closer, her eyes wide. "What do we do?" "Stay calm," Adrian said, though his own heart was hammering. "Chen knows what he's doing." Chen took them into the warehouse district, the same area where this had all started at the diner. The irony wasn't lost on Adrian. He struggled to sit up enough to see out the back window. The sedan was closer now, no longer pretending to be casual traffic. "They're making a move," Chen said. "Hold on." He gunned the engine. The van lurched forward, medical equipment rattling. Adrian's wound screamed as the gurney shifted. Alara braced herself against the wall, protecting Phoenix with her body. The sedan accelerated to match. Then a second vehicle appeared, a SUV, cutting through an intersection to flank them. 2 vehicles, Adrian observed. Coordinated. This isn't random. Chen took a hard right into an alley. The van's side mirror scraped against brick. Behind them, the sedan tried to follow but was too wide. The SUV went around trying to cut them off on the other side. "Who are these people?" Alara demanded. "Could be anyone." Adrian's mind raced through possibilities. Marcus had enemies. Some of them might think I'm weak right now. Good time to settle scores. By running us off the road? By sending a message. Adrian spotted a gun locker under the gurney. Chen's preparation again. "Chen, where's our backup?" "En route. 2 minutes out." "We might not have 2 minutes." The SUV appeared at the alley's end, blocking their exit. Chen slammed the brakes. The van fishtailed, stopped 20 feet from the larger vehicle. Adrian could see armed men climbing out. "Chen!" Alara started. "Trust me." Chen threw the van into reverse, accelerating backward. The sedan had finally navigated the alley entrance and was coming up behind them. They were boxed in. Adrian pulled the gun locker open despite the agony it caused. 3 handguns, 2 rifles, spare magazines. He grabbed a pistol and checked the chamber. You can barely sit up, Alara said. What are you going to do with that? Whatever I have to. The men from the SUV were approaching. 4 of them, weapons drawn but not raised. The leader, a heavy-set man with a shaved head, gestured for Chen to roll down the window. Chen did, keeping his hands visible. Problem, gentlemen? Adrian Voss in there? The man asked. Medical transport. Patient confidentiality applies. Cut the bullshit. The man moved closer. We know he's in there. We just want to talk. Then call his lawyer. Chen's hand was on the gear shift, ready to move. We're not interested in roadside conversations. The man smiled without humor. See, that's the thing. Mr. Voss doesn't get to decide if he's interested or not. Not anymore. Marcus is dead, the organization's in chaos, and people have questions. Questions can wait until he's recovered from surgery. Surgery? The man's smile widened. Heard he had a rough night at the textile factory. Heard a lot of people had rough nights. Funny how bodies keep piling up around Adrian Voss. Adrian shifted on the gurney, trying to get a clear angle. His finger rested on the trigger guard. One shot, take out the leader, Chen could ram through the gap. But that would mean more violence, more bodies, and Alara and Phoenix were right here in the line of fire. The man seemed to sense his calculation. Before you do something stupid, Mr. Voss, you should know we're not here to start trouble. We're here on behalf of some interested parties who want to discuss the future. What future? Adrian called out, his voice rough. Marcus is dead. I'm out. There's nothing to discuss. That's where you're wrong. The man gestured, and one of his associates brought forward a tablet. See, Marcus had plans, big plans, and he documented all of them. Names, locations, operations, bank accounts. Real thorough guy. Adrian's blood went cold. What are you talking about? We're talking about Marcus's insurance policy, information that goes public if anything happens to him. The man held up the tablet. Except he's already dead, so the clock is ticking. 72 hours from time of death, everything uploads automatically, unless someone with the access code stops it. I don't have his codes. No, but you know where he'd hide them. You built that paranoid bastard's security protocols. The man's expression hardened. So here's the offer. You come with us, you help us shut down the dead man's switch, and we let you and your family disappear like you planned. Simple transaction. And if I refuse, then the information goes public. Every crime, every connection, every dirty detail about your entire organization. You think the cops are interested now? Wait until they have a documented roadmap to 15 years of felonies. He paused. That includes information about your wife, about where she was during those 6 months, the shelter she stayed in, the people she talked to. That all becomes part of the public record. Alara's face went white. You're threatening us. I'm offering a deal. The man's voice was almost gentle. Help us clean up Marcus's mess, and you get to walk away clean. Everyone wins. Adrian knew a trap when he heard one. These weren't people looking to negotiate. They were looking to consolidate power. And the easiest way to do that was to eliminate the former boss while he was vulnerable. How do I know this insurance policy even exists? Adrian asked, buying time. Chen's backup should be close now. You don't. But you know Marcus. You know how he thought. Would he really die without making sure he could hurt people from the grave? Adrian hated that the man was right. Marcus would absolutely have set up a dead man's switch. It was exactly the kind of paranoid, vindictive thing he'd do. I need to think about it. You have 30 seconds. That's not enough time to... 30 seconds, Mr. Voss. Then we extract you by force, and your wife gets to watch. I'd rather not traumatize the new mother, but business is business. Adrian looked at Alara. She was holding Phoenix so tight the baby started to squirm. Her eyes were filled with fear, but also determination. She gave a tiny shake of her head. No, don't do it. But what choice did he have? If he fought, people would die. Maybe him, maybe Chen, maybe the men outside. And Alara and Phoenix would be caught in the crossfire. If he went with them, at least his family would be safe. At least Chen could get them to Canada. At least he'd buy them time to run. I'll go, Adrian said. But they leave now. You let Chen drive away with my family, and I'll cooperate. The man considered. How do I know you won't bolt the second they're gone? Because I can barely walk, I'm half dead from blood loss, and you have 4 armed men to my 1 pistol. Adrian set the gun down on the gurney. I'm not exactly a flight risk. A long pause. Then the man nodded. Deal. But if Chen doesn't drive straight to wherever he's going, if he makes any detours or calls for backup, we know, and we will find them. Understood. The man stepped back and gestured for his team to clear a path. The SUV reversed, opening the alley exit. Chen looked back at Adrian. This is a mistake. Probably, but it's my mistake to make. Adrian met his eyes. Get them out, keep them safe. That's all that matters. Adrian, no. Alara was reaching for him. Don't do this. We can fight them. You need to go. Adrian touched her face, memorizing the feeling. Take Phoenix and go. Build that life we talked about. Not without you. I'll find you. I promise. But right now you need to run. He looked at their son, sleeping peacefully despite everything. Take care of him. Tell him his father tried. Tears were streaming down Alara's face. This isn't fair. We just got you back. I know, Adrian's voice broke. But this is the only way to keep you safe. Chen was already starting the van. Alara was still trying to reach Adrian, still trying to protest, but Chen pulled forward. The van drove past the armed men, past the SUV, out of the alley, and into the fading daylight. Adrian watched until they disappeared. Then he looked at the man with the shaved head. Touching, the man said. Real touching. Now get out of the van before I change my mind about the gentle approach. Two of his associates moved forward and pulled open the van's rear doors. They hauled Adrian out, not bothering to be careful with his injuries. He bit back a scream as the movement tore at his surgical wounds. Fresh blood soaked through his bandages. They half carried, half dragged him to the SUV and threw him in the back. One man climbed in on either side of him. The leader got in front. The vehicle started moving. Where are we going? Adrian asked through gritted teeth. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere we can have a real conversation without interruptions. Thought you just wanted Marcus's codes. We do, but we also want to know what your intentions are. The man turned to look at Adrian. See, some people think you're done, broken, ready to fade away. Others think you're planning something, that this whole wounded bird routine is an act. I just had surgery, not really in planning condition. Marcus had surgery once. Appendectomy. He ran a hostile takeover from his hospital bed. The man's eyes were cold. So forgive us if we're not taking you at your word. They drove for 20 minutes, leaving the warehouse district and heading into an area Adrian didn't recognize. Industrial parks gave way to abandoned lots and stripped buildings. The kind of place where screams went unheard. The SUV pulled into what looked like an old mechanic's garage. The bay doors closed behind them. Adrian was dragged out and zip-tied to a chair bolted to the concrete floor. His surgical wounds were bleeding freely now, pain overwhelming the medication Chen had given him. The leader pulled up another chair and sat across from Adrian. Up close, Adrian could see the tattoos on his neck, Russian prison markers. This wasn't one of Marcus's people. This was someone from outside, someone using the chaos to make a move. Let me tell you how this works, the man said conversationally. We ask questions, you answer. If we believe you, you leave. If we don't, you don't. Simple enough. Good. First question. Where would Marcus hide the access codes for his dead man's switch? Adrian thought fast. He needed to give them something believable but useless, something that would buy time without actually helping them. He kept everything in a safety deposit box. Bank of Eastern Commerce, downtown branch. Box number 1847. The man studied him. That was quick. It's the truth. Or it's what you think we want to hear. The man stood up, walked behind Adrian. Here's the thing. We already checked that box. Found nothing but cash and fake passports. Try again. Adrian's mind raced. Where else would Marcus hide something that important? He'd been paranoid, obsessive about security, would have needed access but also protection. Somewhere he visited regularly but not obviously. His lawyer's office, Adrian said. Victor Chen, no relation to my doctor. Marcus used him for estate planning. He'd have the codes in sealed documents. Better. We'll check that. The man came back around to face Adrian. Second question. Who killed Marcus Hale? I did. Why? He faked my wife's death, manipulated me for 6 months, tried to have my family killed. Adrian met the man's eyes. That enough reason? Plenty of reason. Question is whether you regret it. I regret that it took me 6 months to figure out what he'd done. The man smiled slightly. Third question. What are your plans for the organization? I don't have any. I'm out. That's what you say. But you're Adrian Voss. You built this empire. You really expect us to believe you're just walking away? Believe what you want. I'm done. The man's smile faded. See? That's a problem. Because if you're really done, you're a liability. You know too much, you've made too many enemies, and you're a symbol. As long as you're alive, people will wonder if you're coming back. That makes you dangerous. Adrian understood where this was going. They'd never intended to let him go. This was an execution disguised as an interrogation. So kill me, he said. Get it over with. Not yet. We need those codes first. The man nodded to one of his associates. Start with his hands. Work your way up until he talks. The associate pulled out a pair of pliers. Adrian braced himself. He'd been tortured before, years ago when he was building the organization. Had learned that everyone broke eventually. The only question was how long you could hold out. He needed to hold out long enough for Alara and Phoenix to get clear, long enough for Chen to get them on that plane to Canada. Everything else was secondary. The man with the pliers grabbed Adrian's left hand, positioned the tool around his index finger, applied pressure. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. Adrian heard himself scream, the sound echoing off concrete walls. The finger bent at an unnatural angle, the bone grinding, then a sharp crack. Where are the codes? The leader asked calmly. I told you, lawyer's office. We both know that's not true. More pressure. Another finger. Another crack. Adrian's vision went white. The codes, Mr. Voss. Don't have them. Wrong answer. This went on for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. 4 fingers broken, ribs re-injured, the surgical wound in his leg reopened from thrashing against the restraints. Adrian drifted in and out of consciousness, his mind fragmenting from the pain. He thought about Alara, about Phoenix, about the life they could have had if he'd been smarter, stronger, better at protecting them. About all the choices that had led him to this garage, zip-tied to a chair, bleeding out while Russian criminals broke him piece by piece. He's not talking, one of the associates said. Maybe he really doesn't know. Or he's tougher than we thought. The leader leaned close to Adrian's face. I'm going to ask one more time. Where did Marcus hide the codes? Adrian spat blood. Go to hell. The leader sighed and pulled out a gun. Shame. You were a legend once. Now you're just pathetic. He raised the weapon. The bay door exploded inward. Gunfire erupted. The Russian with the pliers went down first, his head snapping back. The others scrambled for weapons but were cut down methodically. Professional. Precise. Adrian tried to focus through the pain. Saw figures in tactical gear moving through the garage. 6 of them, armed with rifles, clearing the space with military efficiency. The leader tried to use Adrian as a shield, putting the gun to his temple. Back off or he dies. One of the tactical team raised their weapon and fired. The bullet went through the leader's shoulder. He dropped the gun. Another operative grabbed him and zip-tied him face down on the floor. Then someone was cutting Adrian's restraints, gentle hands supporting his weight as he slumped forward. Easy, boss. We got you. Adrian looked up into Rodriguez's face, the man who'd walked away from the textile factory, who was supposed to be disappearing with the other survivors. What are you doing here? Chen called, said you did something stupid. Rodriguez was already checking Adrian's injuries, his expression grim. Christ, they really worked you over. Told you. To run. Yeah, well, some of us don't follow orders worth a damn. Rodriguez gestured to the others. We figured you'd do the same for us. Least we could do was return the favor. The other operatives were securing the garage, checking the Russians, setting up a perimeter. They moved like a unit, like they'd trained together. Which didn't make sense because most of them had been low-level enforcers. How did you... Adrian couldn't finish the sentence. Broken fingers, broken ribs, everything hurt. Marcus kept files on everyone. Training backgrounds, special skills. Turns out half his crew were former military. Rodriguez helped another operative lift Adrian. We weren't always criminals, boss. Some of us remember what it was like to have a code. They carried Adrian to a van waiting outside. This one actually was an ambulance, stolen plates, but legitimate medical equipment. Someone who knew what they were doing started treating his injuries. We can't go to a hospital, Adrian managed. They'll find us. We're not going to a hospital. We're going to ground. Rodriguez climbed into the back with him. Chen gave us coordinates for a backup location, said to get you there and wait for instructions. The Russians are getting dropped off at a police station with evidence linking them to Marcus's murder and about a dozen other crimes. Anonymous tip. Rodriguez smiled grimly. Sometimes the system works.
Adrian closed his eyes. The pain was still overwhelming, but the immediate danger had passed. He was alive. Alara and Phoenix were safe with Chen, and against all odds, he had people willing to fight for him. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank us yet. Wait until you see the bill. Rodriguez adjusted the IV line. Rest now. We've got a long drive ahead.
The ambulance pulled out into the night. Adrian let the medication pull him under, trusting Rodriguez and his team to get him to safety. Trusting that somehow, despite everything, this wasn't over yet. He woke to the sensation of being moved. Rough hands, urgent voices. For a moment he thought they'd been captured again, and panic flooded his system. Easy. Rodriguez's voice cut through. We're here. You're safe. Adrian forced his eyes open. They were in another facility, smaller than Chen's setup, more improvised. An old office building converted into a safe house. Rodriguez and his team carried Adrian inside and laid him on a cot. A woman appeared, mid-40s, competent-looking, carrying a medical bag. Let me see the damage. Who are you? Adrian asked. Maria Santos, former army medic, currently retired and minding my own business. She started cutting away his blood-soaked bandages. Rodriguez called in a favor. I owe him for Kandahar. This is going to get you in trouble. Probably. She examined his injuries with clinical detachment. But I've been in trouble before. Tends to work out. She spent the next hour cleaning wounds, resplinting broken fingers, and pumping him full of antibiotics. The surgical incision had been torn open, but not catastrophically. She stitched it back together with practiced efficiency. You're lucky, she said when she finished. Another hour of that interrogation and you'd have died from shock or blood loss. Don't feel lucky. You're alive. Your family's safe. That's lucky in this business. Maria packed up her supplies. You need to stay off that leg for at least a week. Give the surgical site time to heal properly. Don't have a week. Then you'll be crippled for life. Your choice. She headed for the door, then paused. Rodriguez told me what you did. Sacrificing yourself so your family could escape. That took guts. Took stupidity. Sometimes there's not much difference. She left. Rodriguez came in carrying a phone. Chen's calling. Wants to talk to you. Adrian took the phone. Are they safe? They're in the air. Chen's voice was tight. Should land in Toronto in 3 hours. I have people meeting them at the airport. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank your crew. They're the ones who pulled off the rescue. A pause. Adrian, we need to talk about the dead man's switch. It's real? Very real. I did some digging after you got taken. Marcus set up an automated system. 72 hours after his death, unless someone enters the correct codes, everything he documented uploads to multiple news organizations, law enforcement agencies, and public servers. Adrian's stomach sank. How much time do we have left? 46 hours. Can you stop it? Not without the codes. Marcus used military-grade encryption. Even if I had unlimited time and resources, I might not crack it. Chen's voice was grave. You need to find those codes, Adrian. If that information goes public, it won't just destroy the organization. It'll destroy everyone connected to it, including Alara. What do you mean? Marcus documented her, where she was, what she did during those 6 months, people who helped her. If the authorities get that information, they'll bring her in for questioning, maybe charge her as an accessory. A heavy sigh. She was married to you. In the eyes of the law, that makes her complicit. Adrian felt his world tilting again. She didn't know anything about the business. She's innocent. That doesn't matter if the evidence says otherwise. And Marcus was thorough. He made sure there were enough breadcrumbs to make her look involved. Bastard. Even dead, Marcus was still destroying them. Where would he hide the codes? That's what you need to figure out. You knew him better than anyone. Adrian's mind was sluggish from pain and medication, but he forced himself to think. Marcus had been paranoid, methodical, would have hidden the codes somewhere secure but accessible, somewhere only he would think to look. Then it hit him. The beginning, Adrian said. What?
Marcus always said you can't know where you're going without remembering where you started. Adrian struggled to sit up despite Maria's orders. There's a place where we first made real money, where the organization really began. Where? Old shipping warehouse on the waterfront, Pier 17. We used it for our first major gun shipment 15 years ago. Adrian could picture it clearly. Marcus kept a locker there, said it was for sentimental reasons. I always thought he was joking.
You think the codes are there? I think if Marcus was going to hide something important, somewhere only he would look, that's where he'd put it. Adrian looked at Rodriguez. How fast can we get to the waterfront? Rodriguez checked his watch. 20 minutes if we push it. Then we push it. Adrian started trying to stand. His leg immediately gave out. You can't even walk, Rodriguez protested. Don't need to walk, just need to get there. Adrian grabbed Rodriguez's shoulder for support. Get me to that warehouse. I'll find the codes. Adrian, you're in no condition? 46 hours, Rodriguez. That's all we have before everything collapses. He met the other man's eyes. I need to finish this. For Alara. For Phoenix. For everyone Marcus tried to destroy. Rodriguez looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded and called to his team. Load up. We're moving out. They got Adrian into a wheelchair. His leg wouldn't support weight anymore and loaded him into a van. 4 of Rodriguez's people came along, all armed, all alert. They knew this could be a trap, knew the waterfront would be dangerous, especially with police still looking for Adrian in connection to Marcus's death. But they went anyway. The warehouse loomed against the night sky, dark and silent. The area had been condemned 5 years ago, fenced off and forgotten. Perfect place for hiding secrets. Rodriguez's team cut through the fence and wheeled Adrian inside. The interior was exactly as Adrian remembered, vast and empty, with rusted shipping containers stacked against the walls. Their footsteps echoed in the cavernous space. Where's the locker? Rodriguez asked. Northwest corner, second floor offices. Adrian pointed. There used to be stairs. There still were. Barely. Rusted metal, questionable structural integrity. Rodriguez looked at the wheelchair, looked at the stairs, looked at Adrian. This is going to suck, he said. Everything sucks lately. 2 of Rodriguez's men carried Adrian up the stairs while the others provided security. Each step sent fresh agony through his body. Adrian bit down on a leather strap Maria had given him, trying not to scream. The second floor offices were mostly collapsed, but in the corner behind a fallen beam was the locker. An old military footlocker, secured with a combination lock. You know the combination? Rodriguez asked. Marcus's birthday backwards, he was predictable that way. It took 3 tries. Adrian's broken fingers made turning the dial difficult, but the lock clicked open. Inside were papers, old photographs from the early days, a bottle of expensive vodka, and a USB drive. Adrian held it up. This is it. You sure? Only one way to find out. Adrian pocketed the drive. Get me to a computer. We need to see what we're dealing with. They got him back downstairs and into the van. Rodriguez had brought a laptop. Adrian plugged in the drive. It was password protected. Of course it was. Adrian tried obvious combinations. Marcus's birthday, his mother's name, the date they founded the organization. Nothing worked. How many attempts do we have? Rodriguez asked. No way to know. Could be unlimited. Could be 3 tries and the drive bricks itself. Adrian stared at the screen. We need to think like Marcus. What would he use? Then it came to him. The date Alara's car exploded. The day Marcus's plan had begun. The day everything changed. Adrian typed it in. The drive opened. Inside were files, hundreds of them, documents detailing every operation, every crime, every connection the organization had made in 15 years. Names, dates, evidence. Everything needed to dismantle their entire world. And at the center of it all, a program labeled Final Judgment. Adrian opened it. Found the countdown timer. 44 hours remaining. And below it, a field for the cancellation code. We did it, Rodriguez breathed. We actually did it. But Adrian was staring at something else, a video file labeled for Adrian. He clicked it. Marcus's face filled the screen. He was sitting in the same office where Adrian had killed him, recording this message who knew how long ago. If you're watching this, I'm dead. Marcus's expression was calm, almost peaceful. And you found the codes. Congratulations. You always were better at the details than me. Adrian's hand tightened on the laptop. You're probably wondering why I did this. Why I destroyed your marriage, manipulated you, turned you into someone you hate. Marcus leaned forward. It's simple, really. I needed you focused, needed you ruthless, because what we built was special, Adrian. We took nothing and made it into an empire, and I couldn't let sentiment destroy that. A pause.
But here's the thing. I also knew you'd never forgive me, knew that eventually you'd figure it out. And when you did, Marcus smiled. I wanted to make sure you understood the full scope of what you were throwing away. The cancellation code is simple, but using it means accepting responsibility for everything we did together. Every crime documented in these files becomes your legacy, your burden. Marcus stood up, moved closer to the camera. So here's your choice, Adrian. Enter the code, save yourself and your family, and live with the weight of what we built. Or let it all burn. Let the truth come out. Destroy the organization, yes, but also destroy everyone connected to it, including Alara. The video ended. Adrian sat in silence, staring at the blank screen. What does that mean? Rodriguez asked quietly. It means Marcus wins either way. Adrian's voice was hollow. If I stop the upload, I'm complicit. I'm protecting everything he documented. If I let it go public, I destroy my wife's chance at a normal life. So what do you do? Adrian looked at the laptop, at the countdown timer, at the choice Marcus had left him. 44 hours to decide who he wanted to be. Adrian stared at the screen for so long that Rodriguez finally spoke up. Boss, we need to make a decision. I know. But Adrian didn't move. Couldn't. Because every option felt like betrayal. Enter the code and protect the organization's secrets. Become complicit in everything Marcus had documented. Let it upload and watch Alara get dragged into a legal nightmare that could destroy the fresh start she deserved. There has to be another way, Rodriguez said. There isn't. Marcus made sure of that. Adrian scrolled through the files, seeing names he recognized. People who trusted them. People who'd die or go to prison if this went public. He knew exactly what he was doing. One of Rodriguez's team members cleared his throat. What if we edited the files? Remove the parts about your wife before entering the code. Military-grade encryption, remember? We can't alter anything without triggering a failsafe. Adrian closed the laptop. Marcus thought of everything. His phone rang, Chen's number. Adrian answered on speaker. Your family landed safely, Chen said without preamble. They're at the safe house. But we have a problem. Another one? The news story about Alara is getting bigger. CNN picked it up. Now there are reporters digging into her background, trying to find out where she was during those 6 months. Chen's voice was tight. It's only a matter of time before someone connects dots Marcus left for them to find. Adrian felt his chest constrict. How much time? Days? Maybe less. The shelter she stayed at in August? They kept records. A reporter's already been there asking questions. Can you shut it down? I can try. But Adrian, this is mainstream media now. I can't control that. A pause. You need to stop that upload. It's the only way to protect her. I know what I need to do. Adrian looked at Rodriguez. The question is whether I can live with it. He hung up and opened the laptop again. The countdown timer mocked him. 43 hours and change. Every second that passed was another second closer to Alara's life being destroyed. Enter the code, Rodriguez said quietly. Whatever moral weight that carries, you can deal with later. Right now, your family needs you. And what about everyone else in those files? The people who'll get away with crimes because I protected them? They're not your responsibility, aren't they? I helped build this. I made it possible for half those crimes to happen. Adrian's broken fingers throbbed. How many people got hurt because I was good at logistics? Because I knew how to move product without getting caught? Rodriguez didn't have an answer for that. Adrian scrolled through more files, found detailed records of their gun-running operation from 2019, 3 shipments that ended up in the hands of a gang that used them in a convenience store robbery. 2 people died. Marcus had documented everything, including Adrian's role in setting up the transport. I killed those people, Adrian said. I didn't pull the trigger, but I put the guns in the hands of the people who did. You didn't know what they'd use them for. I knew they weren't buying assault rifles for target practice. Adrian felt sick. I just didn't care. Money was good. Risk was low. That's all that mattered. He kept scrolling, found more. A protection racket that drove 3 small businesses into bankruptcy. A drug distribution network that got a 15-year-old kid killed in a turf war.
a money laundering scheme that helped a human trafficking ring stay operational for 2 extra years. All documented, all traced back to the organization Adrian had helped build. This is what Marcus wanted, Adrian realized. Not just the information going public or staying secret. He wanted me to see it all, to understand what we really were. We were survivors, Rodriguez said. We did what we had to do.
Did we? Or did we just tell ourselves that so we could sleep at night? Adrian met his eyes.
You got out of the military and couldn't find work. I understand that. But at what point did survival become greed? When did we stop being desperate and start being predators? Rodriguez's jaw tightened. You're being too hard on yourself.
Am I?
Because looking at these files, I'm not being hard enough.
Adrian gestured at the screen.
15 years of destruction. And for what? Money? Power? The respect of other criminals?
For family, Rodriguez said firmly.
You did this for Alara originally, to give her a life she deserved. And instead I got her blown up and hunted for 6 months.
Adrian's laugh was bitter.
Great job there.
His phone buzzed.
A text from an unknown number.
I know where the codes are. We should talk.
Adrian showed it to Rodriguez. Recognize the number? No. Could be anyone. Could be a bluff. Another text. Pier 17, second floor. You're running out of time, Adrian. Let's make a deal. It's a trap, Rodriguez said immediately. Has to be. Probably. But Adrian was already checking the warehouse's layout on his phone's camera feed. Rodriguez had set up temporary security cameras when they arrived. He spotted movement on the first floor. 3 figures moving carefully through the shadows. They're already here. Rodriguez cursed and signaled his team. They moved into defensive positions, weapons ready. Adrian stayed in the wheelchair, the laptop balanced on his knees, watching the countdown timer tick down. 43 hours, 14 minutes, 27 seconds. A voice echoed up from the first floor. Adrian Voss, we need to talk. The accent was Eastern European, not Russian. Adrian had learned to distinguish accents in his years running an international operation. Ukrainian, maybe, or Romanian. I'm listening, Adrian called back. Not from up there. Face to face. Civilized. Last time someone wanted to talk civilized, I got 4 fingers broken. You'll understand if I'm not enthusiastic about the idea. A pause. Then the voice again. Closer now. Fair point. But I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to offer a solution. To what problem? The same one you're facing. Marcus's dead man's switch. The files. The choice you can't make. The speaker reached the second floor. A woman in her 40s, athletic build, sharp eyes. She was alone, hands visible and empty. My name is Katya Volkov. I worked with Marcus occasionally. He reached out to me 3 months ago with an interesting proposal. Adrian didn't lower his guard. What kind of proposal? Insurance. He knew you'd eventually figure out what he'd done. Knew you'd come for him. So he set up contingencies. Katya moved carefully, aware of Rodriguez's team tracking her with their weapons. The dead man's switch was one. I'm another. Explain. Marcus hired me to monitor the situation after his death. If you found the codes and entered them, I was to ensure the original files still made it to certain interested parties. Edited versions, of course, just enough to cause problems without destroying everything. Adrian felt his stomach drop. He played both sides, always. It's how he stayed alive this long. Katya stopped 10 feet away. But here's the interesting part. Marcus also gave me authority to negotiate on his behalf. If you were willing to make a deal, I could offer terms. What terms? You enter the cancellation code. The files stay buried. And in exchange, you work with me to transition the organization to new leadership. Clean leadership. No more of Marcus's chaos. Just efficient, professional criminal enterprise. Rodriguez tensed. He's out. We're all out. Are you? Katya looked at each of them. Because from where I stand, you're all still here. Still protecting the organization's secrets. Still making choices based on what's best for the business. She focused on Adrian. Face it, you can't walk away. You're too tangled up in this. Watch me. I have been watching you for 3 months now. Ever since Marcus told me to. Katya pulled out a tablet, showed Adrian surveillance photos. Him and Alara at the diner, the textile factory, the medical facility. I've seen every move you've made, and I've seen a man who's still operating like a crime boss, even when he thinks he's retired. The photos were damning, even running, even trying to protect his family,
Adrian had moved like someone who knew the game, had made strategic decisions, had calculated risks, had used violence efficiently. That doesn't mean I want to keep doing it. Doesn't mean you can stop either. Katya put the tablet away. Look, I'm not here to judge. I'm here to offer a way forward. You help me stabilize the organization, ensure a smooth transition to new leadership, and I guarantee your family's safety. Complete protection. No one touches them. Ever. And if I refuse, then I let Marcus's backup plan execute. Different files, different targets, but same result. Your wife becomes a person of interest in a federal investigation. Your son grows up visiting you in prison. She tilted her head. Or you die here tonight trying to stop me and they end up orphaned. Lots of bad options. Adrian looked at the laptop, at the countdown timer, at the files full of crimes and consequences. There's a third option, he said slowly. What's that? I let it all burn. Upload the files myself. Right now. Every crime, every connection, every dirty secret Marcus documented. Adrian's hand moved toward the keyboard. Destroy the organization completely. Salt the earth so nothing can grow back. Katya's expression didn't change. That would destroy your wife too. Maybe. But at least I'd be making the choice instead of being Marcus's puppet. Adrian's fingers hovered over the keys. At least I'd own it. You'd sacrifice your family to feel morally superior? I'd sacrifice everything to stop being what Marcus made me. Adrian met her eyes. You know what the worst part of those files is? Not the crimes, not the body count. It's how normal it all became. How I stopped questioning whether we should do something and just focused on how to do it efficiently. He gestured at the screen. There's a file in here about a job we did in 2021, moving counterfeit pharmaceuticals. I knew they were fake, knew people might die taking fake cancer medication. And I did it anyway because the profit margin was incredible. 20 people died, Katya. 20 people who thought they were getting life-saving treatment. That's on the people who made the counterfeit drugs. Is it? Because we moved them. We distributed them. We made that operation possible. Adrian's voice was rising. At what point do I get to say I was just following orders, just making a living? When does that stop being an excuse? Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably. He'd been part of that operation too. They all had. So what's your answer? Katya asked. Nobility or practicality? Conscience or family? Adrian looked at his broken fingers. At the laptop. At Rodriguez and the others who'd risked everything to save him. At the phone that connected him to Alara in Phoenix, safe in Canada, but only for as long as Marcus's secrets stayed buried. I need to talk to my wife, he said. Katya checked her watch. You have 10 minutes, then I need an answer, or I walk and let the chips fall. Adrian called Chen. Put Alara on. Adrian, she's sleeping. Put her on, now. A moment of rustling. Then Alara's voice, thick with sleep. What's wrong? Everything. Adrian quickly explained the situation. The files, the choice, Katya's offer. I need to know what you want me to do. Silence on the other end. He could hear Phoenix fussing in the background. Alara shushing him gently. Are you asking me to choose between your conscience and our safety? She finally said. I'm asking what kind of man you want me to be. I want you to be Phoenix's father. That's all. Her voice was steady. Whatever you have to do to make that possible, I'll support it. Even if it means protecting people who don't deserve it? Even then. Because we don't deserve to suffer for Marcus's sins. She paused. But Adrian, if you enter that code and spend the rest of your life hating yourself for it, that's not really survival either. That's just slower death. So what do I do? I don't know. I wish I did. She sounded exhausted. All I know is that 6 months ago, I would have told you to do the right thing no matter what it cost us. But 6 months living in my car, working 3 jobs, being terrified every moment, that changes perspective. Makes you realize that nobility doesn't feed a baby, doesn't keep him safe. Adrian heard what she wasn't saying, that she'd choose safety over morality, that she'd already made that choice every day for 6 months. I love you, he said. I love you too. Whatever you decide. She hung up. Adrian looked at Katya. If I work with you, what happens to the organization? We clean it up. No more counterfeits, no more trafficking. We focus on traditional revenue streams, gambling, loans, some light smuggling, nothing that gets people killed. That's still criminal. Yes, but it's survivable. And it keeps the infrastructure in place to protect people like your family who need protecting. Katya moved closer. Marcus built something powerful. Walking away doesn't make it disappear. It just means someone worse takes over. At least with you involved, we can minimize damage. That's the same logic I used for 15 years.
And it wasn't wrong then. Isn't wrong now. She gestured at Rodriguez and his team. These men didn't follow you because you were a saint. They followed you because you were fair, because you protected your people, because you built something that worked. Rodriguez spoke up. She's not wrong, boss. The organization kept a lot of chaos from happening. We controlled territory that would have been a war zone otherwise. We also caused chaos, Adrian countered. Less than there would have been without us. Rodriguez's voice was firm. I know that's not the answer you want, but it's the truth. Adrian thought about the neighborhood where the diner was, how it had been relatively peaceful under their control, how after they'd started pulling back, violence had spiked. 3 shootings in 2 weeks, a turf war brewing. Maybe Rodriguez was right. Maybe the organization had been a necessary evil. Or maybe that was just another excuse to justify the unjustifiable. The countdown timer showed 42 hours and 37 minutes. I need a guarantee, Adrian said to Katya. My family stays completely out of this. No contact, no involvement, no knowledge of what I'm doing. Done. And I want an exit strategy, 2 years maximum. I help you transition the organization, clean it up, make it stable. Then I'm gone for real. New identity, new life, no looking back. 2 years is tight but doable. Katya nodded. Anything else? Rodriguez and his team get the same option. They want out, they're out. Clean. No retaliation. Agreed. Adrian looked at Rodriguez. You don't have to stay. You earned your exit tonight. If you're staying, I'm staying. Rodriguez's voice was flat. Someone needs to watch your back. The others nodded agreement. Loyalty Adrian didn't deserve but had somehow earned anyway. He turned back to the laptop, typed in the cancellation code Marcus had left in a separate file. The countdown timer froze, then disappeared. A message appeared. Sequence aborted. Files secured. Just like that, it was done. The choice made. The consequences accepted. Katya smiled. Smart decision. Marcus would be proud. Marcus is dead. I don't care what he'd think. Adrian closed the laptop. We do this my way. Clean operations only. Anyone who can't follow that rule is out. Fair enough. We'll start with a full audit of current operations, then. Not tonight. Tonight I need medical attention and about 12 hours of sleep. Adrian's body was finally giving up, adrenaline fading and leaving only pain. Tomorrow, we can talk about restructuring. Katya nodded and headed for the stairs. At the top, she paused. For what it's worth, you made the right choice. Family first. Everything else is just details. She left. Rodriguez and his team began packing up equipment. Adrian sat in the wheelchair, staring at the laptop, wondering if he'd just saved his family or sold his soul. Maybe both. His phone rang. Alara. It's done, he said. You're safe. What did you choose? Survival. The word tasted like ash. I chose survival. Then we'll make it mean something. Her voice was fierce. We'll make it worth the cost. Adrian wanted to believe her. Wanted to think that somehow he could do this. Could be part of a criminal organization while being a good father, a good husband. Could separate the two lives cleanly. But he'd thought that before. Had thought he could build an empire and keep Alara safe. Look how that turned out. I need you to promise me something, he said. What? If this goes wrong, if I get pulled back into being what I was, you won't. But if I do, if you see me changing into someone you don't recognize, take Phoenix and run. Don't wait for me to get better. Don't try to save me. Just run. Silence. Then, I'm not making that promise. Alara, I already lost you once. I'm not planning for losing you again. Her voice was steel. We're in this together. Whatever comes. That's not smart. Probably not, but I'm done being smart. Being smart got me blown up and living in my car. Maybe it's time to try something different. Adrian couldn't help but smile despite everything. You've changed. So have you. Maybe we'll figure out who we are now together. Phoenix started crying in the background. I need to feed him. Call me when you're safe. She hung up. Rodriguez helped Adrian into the van. The drive back to the safe house was quiet. Everyone processing what had just happened. The choice that had been made. Maria was waiting when they arrived. She took one look at Adrian and cursed. You reopened everything. What did I tell you about staying off that leg? Had things to do? Yeah, well, now you're going to spend a week in bed recovering from having things to do. She helped Rodriguez get Adrian onto the cot. I'm serious. You keep pushing like this, you'll do permanent damage. Already did permanent damage, just trying to minimize it now. She didn't ask what he meant, just started treating his wounds again, muttering about stubborn patients who didn't listen to medical advice. Adrian drifted in and out of consciousness over the next hours. Fever came and went, infection from the torture setting in despite the antibiotics. Maria worked through it all, keeping him alive through sheer competence and stubbornness. When he finally woke up clear-headed, sunlight was streaming through grimy windows. Rodriguez sat in a chair nearby, reading a newspaper. How long was I out? Adrian's voice was rough. 18 hours, you needed it. Rodriguez set down the paper. Katya called. Wants to meet this afternoon to discuss next steps. Tell her tomorrow. I need time to think. Already did. Rodriguez smiled slightly. Figured you weren't in meeting condition. Adrian tried to sit up, managed it with effort. His body felt like it had been through a wood chipper, which wasn't far from the truth. Any word from Chen? Your family's settled. New identities are being processed. Chen thinks they'll be ready to relocate to permanent housing within a week. Where? He wouldn't say. Security protocols. Rodriguez handed Adrian a phone. But Alara sent you something. Adrian opened the phone, found a video message. Alara was sitting in what looked like a modest apartment, Phoenix sleeping in her arms. Hi, she said to the camera. Chen says you're recovering. That's good. We're okay here. Phoenix is healthy. Eating well, sleeping in 4-hour stretches. Doctor says he's perfect. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I know what you're thinking, that you made the wrong choice, that you should have let everything burn and dealt with the consequences. But, Adrian, we've dealt with enough consequences. We've paid enough prices. She looked down at Phoenix. He deserves parents who are present, who are alive. Whatever you had to do to make that possible, I'm grateful. She looked back at the camera. Come back to us. When you can. When it's safe. But come back. Her voice cracked slightly. Don't turn this into another sacrifice. We need you here, not off trying to fix everything you think you broke. The video ended. Adrian watched it 3 more times, memorizing her face, Phoenix's small features, the apartment that would be their home while he was doing whatever came next. You going to tell her the truth? Rodriguez asked. About working with Katya? Eventually, when I figure out how. Adrian set down the phone. Right now, she thinks I just stopped the upload and walked away. Letting her believe that a little longer won't hurt. You're a terrible liar. I know. She'll figure it out in about a week. Adrian leaned back against the thin pillow. Probably sooner. Rodriguez stood and stretched. For what it's worth, I think you made the right call. Organization needs someone with a conscience running it. Better you than some psychopath who sees people as resources. That's what Marcus said, right before he faked my wife's death. Marcus was a psychopath playing at having a conscience. You're the opposite. Rodriguez headed for the door. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be complicated. He left Adrian alone with his thoughts and his guilt. The phone buzzed. A text from Katya. Audit is complete. We have bigger problems than I thought. Call when you're ready to discuss. Adrian almost threw the phone across the room. Almost. Instead, he just turned it off and closed his eyes. 2 years. He'd promised himself 2 years maximum. 24 months to clean up Marcus's mess, stabilize the organization, and create something that wouldn't immediately collapse into chaos when he left. It sounded impossible. Probably was impossible. But then again, surviving the last week had seemed impossible too. His body ached. His fingers throbbed where they'd been broken. The surgical wound in his leg was infected and angry. He'd been shot, tortured, and nearly killed multiple times. And somehow he was still here, still breathing, still fighting, for Alara, for Phoenix, for the chance at the life Marcus had tried to take from them. Adrian opened his eyes and stared at the water-stained ceiling. Somewhere in Canada, his wife was taking care of their son, building a home, believing her husband would come back to them when the danger passed. He would. He had to. Because the alternative, becoming what Marcus had been, losing himself in the organization, sacrificing his humanity for power, That was worse than any physical wound. 2 years. He could do this for 2 years, clean up the mess, minimize the damage, create something sustainable, then walk away for real. He had to believe that. Had to believe he was strong enough to stay himself while surrounded by the very things that had corrupted him before. The question was whether belief was enough, whether willpower and good intentions could overcome the momentum of 15 years building an empire. Adrian didn't have an answer, wouldn't for months, maybe years, but he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't the same man who'd walked into that diner a week ago. That Adrian had been hollow, functional, dead inside. This Adrian had something to live for, something to protect, something worth staying human for. Whether that would be enough remained to be seen. Maria came back in with fresh bandages and more antibiotics. Fever's down, that's good, but you're still in rough shape. Story of my life lately. Well, try to keep it from being the story of your death. She changed his dressings efficiently. You've got people counting on you. Don't let them down by bleeding out from stubbornness. I'll try. She paused at the door. Rodriguez told me what you did. Choosing your family over revenge. That took guts. Took cowardice, more like. No, revenge is easy. Building something after everything's been destroyed, that takes real strength. She nodded once and left. Adrian wanted to believe her. Wanted to think that choosing survival over nobility was strength rather than weakness. But lying there in a converted office building, body broken and future uncertain, it was hard to feel strong. Hard to feel like anything except a man who'd made yet another compromise in a long line of compromises. The only difference this time was that he knew exactly what he was compromising, what price he was paying, and who he was paying it for. His phone turned back on automatically. Security feature Rodriguez must have enabled. A message was waiting from Chen. Documents ready. New identity for you processes in 48 hours. Where should I send them? Adrian stared at the message. A new identity. A fresh start. Everything he'd wanted. Except he couldn't take it. Not yet. Not with Katya waiting to discuss bigger problems. Not with the organization potentially collapsing into chaos without someone to guide the transition. He typed back, "Hold them. I'll let you know when I'm ready." Chen's response came immediately. "Don't take too long. The longer you stay in that world, the harder it is to leave." Adrian knew that better than anyone. Had watched it happen to Marcus. To dozens of others who thought they could do just one more job before getting out. But he didn't have a choice. Had made his choice when he entered that cancellation code. Now he had to live with it. For 2 years. For his family. For the chance to finally, truly walk away. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep, knowing that when he woke up, the real work would begin. Adrian woke to Rodriguez shaking his shoulder. "Boss, we've got a situation." 3 days had passed since the warehouse. 3 days of Maria's brutal medical care, of sleeping 16 hours at a stretch, of his body slowly remembering how to function. He could walk now, with a cane, could use his right hand despite the splinted fingers, could think through the pain medication fog. What kind of situation? The kind where Katya's downstairs with 12 armed men and she's not asking politely anymore. Rodriguez's expression was grim. She says the organization's fragmenting faster than expected. If we don't move now, it all collapses. Adrian struggled upright, his leg protesting. How bad? 3 territory wars started yesterday. Someone tried to claim the eastern docks, got pushed back by the Albanians. The drug distribution network is fighting internally about who's in charge, and the police are making noise about a major task force. Rodriguez helped him into clean clothes. It's chaos, boss. Real chaos. Adrian had been expecting this. Marcus's death had left a power vacuum, and nature abhorred a vacuum. The question was whether he had the strength to fill it, or whether he should just let it collapse and walk away. The problem was walking away meant blood. Meant turf wars and civilian casualties, and the kind of violence that came when structure disappeared and everyone fought for scraps. Tell Katya I'll be down in 5 minutes. You can barely stand. Then I'll sit down when I talk to her. Adrian grabbed his cane. 5 minutes. Rodriguez left. Adrian took a moment to study himself in the cracked bathroom mirror. He looked like hell, pale, drawn, hollow-eyed. The face of a man who'd been through a meat grinder and barely survived. But he was alive. That counted for something. He made his way downstairs slowly, each step a negotiation with his damaged body. Katya was waiting in what used to be the building's lobby,
surrounded by her security detail. She'd cleaned up since the warehouse, expensive suit, hair pulled back professionally, looking every inch the corporate executive rather than the criminal facilitator. Adrian, you look terrible. You look like you're ready to close a merger. He lowered himself into a chair carefully. What's the emergency? The emergency is that your organization is eating itself alive. Katya pulled out a tablet, showed him maps marked with conflict zones. 7 separate factions claiming different territories. The Italians are making moves on the gambling operations. The Irish are pushing into loan sharking. Everyone smells blood in the water. Adrian studied the maps, recognized the patterns. This was what happened when leadership disappeared and no clear succession existed. Marcus had kept people in line through fear and manipulation. With him gone, all the old rivalries were resurging. So consolidate them. Pick the strongest faction leaders and make them regional controllers. Already tried. They don't respect my authority. I'm just Marcus's contractor to them. Katya leaned forward. They need to hear it from you. The legendary Adrian Voss, the man who built this empire. Tell them to fall in line or face consequences. And if I do that, I'm not transitioning out in 2 years. I'm cementing myself back in. Adrian shook his head. That wasn't the deal. The deal was you'd help stabilize things. Well, this is what stabilization looks like, getting your hands dirty, making the hard calls. She switched to a different screen, showed him surveillance footage of a shootout from the previous night. That's what happens when no one's in charge. 5 dead, including 2 civilians. A mother and her kid caught in the crossfire. Adrian watched the footage with a sick feeling in his stomach. The woman had been trying to shield her child when the bullets found them. Random casualties in someone else's war. How old was the kid? 7. The same age Adrian had been when his own father died. Different circumstances. His father had drunk himself to death rather than being shot. But the aftermath was the same, a childhood destroyed, a future rewritten by violence. Show me the faction leaders, he said quietly. Katya pulled up profiles. 7 main players, all vying for control. Adrian recognized most of them. Tommy Chen ran the gambling operations and had always been reliable, if unimaginative. Sarah Mitchell controlled most of the loan distribution and had a reputation for being ruthless but fair. Viktor Kozlov handled enforcement and was a psychopath who'd barely been kept in check when Marcus was alive. The others were newer, more ambitious, hungry for power, and willing to burn everything down to get it. Kozlov needs to go, Adrian said. He's unstable, always has been. Marcus kept him around as a weapon, but now that weapon's pointed at us. Agreed, but removing him will start a war. We're already in a war. This way it's controlled. Adrian looked at Rodriguez. Can you handle it quietly? Rodriguez nodded. Give me 24 hours. What about the others? Katya asked. We give them a choice. Fall in line under a new structure or get out. Clean exit, no retaliation, but they walk away with nothing except their lives. Adrian was already thinking through the logistics. We keep Chen and Mitchell as regional heads. Bring in new blood for distribution and enforcement. People who aren't attached to the old way of doing things. That's a complete reorganization. That's the point. We're not rebuilding what Marcus had. We're building something different. Adrian met her eyes. Something that doesn't rely on one person being a monster to keep everyone afraid. Katya considered this. You're talking about decentralization, shared power structures. I'm talking about not repeating Marcus's mistakes. He made himself indispensable and then used that as leverage. We make the organization work without requiring a tyrant at the top. That's idealistic. That's survival, because I'm not staying. In 2 years, I'm gone whether this works or not. So we build something that doesn't need me. Adrian shifted in his chair, his leg throbbing. You want my help? That's the price. We do this right or we don't do it at all. Katya studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, we do it your way. But I need you visible for the transition. The faction leaders need to see you, hear from you directly. Set up a meeting tomorrow night, somewhere neutral. Adrian was already exhausted and they'd barely started. And get me everything you have on current operations. I need to know what we're working with. Done, Katya stood. For what it's worth, I think Marcus underestimated you. He thought grief would make you harder. Instead, it made you smarter. He made me a lot of things. Smart wasn't one of them. Adrian watched her leave with her security detail. Once they were gone, he turned to Rodriguez.
Kozlov, make it look like a rival gang. We don't need people thinking we're purging leadership. Understood. Rodriguez hesitated. Boss, you sure about this? Reorganizing the whole operation? No, but I'm sure about what happens if we don't. More shootouts, more dead civilians, more kids losing parents. Adrian pushed himself upright with the cane. We can't stop being criminals overnight, but we can stop being the kind of criminals who get 7-year-olds killed. Rodriguez left to handle arrangements. Adrian made his way back upstairs, each step harder than the last. Maria was waiting with pain medication and disapproval. You're supposed to be resting. I'll rest when this is over. At this rate, over is going to mean dead. She handed him pills and water. Your body can't sustain this pace. It doesn't have a choice. There's always a choice. Maria sat across from him. Question is whether you're making it or whether you're letting circumstances make it for you. Adrian swallowed the pills. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're falling into the same pattern Marcus did, telling yourself you're doing what's necessary, that you're protecting people, that you don't have options. She leaned forward. But you do have options. You could walk away right now, let it all collapse. That's a choice. That choice gets people killed. So does staying. Different people, maybe, but violence is violence. Maria's voice was gentle. I'm not judging. I'm just saying be honest about why you're doing this. Is it really about protecting civilians, or is it about not being able to let go of what you built? Adrian wanted to argue, wanted to insist this was about responsibility, about minimizing harm, about doing the right thing in impossible circumstances. But sitting there in a safe house, body broken and future uncertain, he couldn't quite convince himself that was the whole truth. Part of him, a part he didn't want to acknowledge, had missed this. The strategic thinking, the problem solving, the feeling of being essential, of making decisions that mattered. Marcus had understood that about him, had known that taking away Alara wouldn't just make Adrian sharper, it would make him hungry for purpose, for meaning, for something to fill the void her absence created. I don't know, Adrian admitted finally. I don't know if I'm doing this for the right reasons or just because I don't know who I am without it. That's honest, at least. Maria stood. Just remember your family is in Canada waiting for a husband and father, not a crime boss trying to solve the world's problems. She left him alone with that thought. Adrian called Alara. She answered on the second ring, Phoenix crying in the background. Hey, she said, sounding exhausted. Bad time. He's been fussy all day. I can call back. No, it's fine. Gives me an excuse to walk around. He heard her moving, the crying getting slightly quieter. How are you feeling? Better? Walking with a cane. Fingers are healing. He paused. I need to tell you something. That sounds ominous. I'm not coming to Canada yet. There's work I need to finish here first. Silence on the other end. Just Phoenix's fussing and the sound of Alara's breathing. What kind of work? Her voice was carefully neutral. The organization is falling apart. If I don't help stabilize it, people are going to die. Civilians caught in territory wars. So you're staying to play crime boss. I'm staying to prevent a bloodbath. Is there a difference? She wasn't angry, which somehow made it worse, just tired. Adrian, you told me you were out. You said you made the choice for family. I did. I am. But I can't just walk away and let... Yes, you can. You absolutely can. You just don't want to. Her voice cracked slightly. And I get it, I do. You built this thing and you feel responsible for it. But Adrian, you're also responsible for us, for Phoenix. He's 3 days old and his father is 1,000 miles away making deals with criminals. I know, and I'm sorry, but if I leave now, people die. I heard you the first time. She was crying now, trying to hide it. But what about us? What about the life you promised we'd build? I'm trying to build it. I just need time to... How much time? Another week? Another month? 2 years like you told Katya? Her voice hardened. Because I heard about that deal. Chen told me. You agreed to stay involved for 2 years. Adrian cursed internally. He'd been planning to tell her, just not yet. Not when she was still adjusting to motherhood and living in hiding. It's not... Don't lie to me. Please don't lie to me. She was openly sobbing now. I can't do this again. Can't spend years wondering if you're coming back. If you're becoming someone I don't recognize. If our son will grow up visiting you in prison or at a cemetery. Alara. I need to go. Phoenix needs me and I can't have this conversation right now. Wait, please. She hung up. Adrian sat there holding the phone, listening to the dial tone. He wanted to call back, to explain, to make her understand. But what would he say? That he was choosing criminals over his family? That he couldn't let go of the empire he'd built even though it had destroyed their lives? Maria had been right. He was making choices, and not all of them were about protecting people. Some of them were about ego. About not being able to walk away from something he'd spent 15 years creating. The question was whether he could admit that to himself, and if he did, whether it would change anything. Rodriguez returned that evening with news. Kozlov's handled, made to look like the Italians settling an old score. Any blowback? His crew is angry but directionless. Without him, they're just muscle looking for someone to follow. Rodriguez sat down. We can absorb them, or cut them loose. Your call. Cut them loose. Give them severance and contacts in other cities. They want to keep working. They can do it somewhere else. Adrian rubbed his face. We're downsizing, not expanding. The other faction leaders are getting nervous, word spreading that you're making moves. Good. Nervous people are careful people. Adrian pulled out the tablet Katya had left, reviewed the operational data. Set up the meeting for tomorrow night, the old brewery on 5th. It's neutral ground and big enough for everyone. You going to be ready for that? You can barely walk. I'll be ready. Adrian had to be. This meeting would set the tone for everything that came after. Show weakness, and they'd tear him apart. Show too much strength, and they'd see him as the next tyrant. He needed to thread a needle while barely able to stand. The next evening, Rodriguez helped him into a suit that mostly hid the bandages and splints. Adrian looked at himself in the mirror and saw a ghost of the man he used to be. Thinner, harder, aged a decade in a week. You look like hell, Rodriguez observed. I feel worse. Adrian adjusted his tie. But that might work in our favor. I look like someone who's been through a war, because I have been. They arrived at the brewery an hour before the meeting, securing the space and setting up the room. A single table with chairs around it. No weapons allowed inside. Everyone got searched at the door. Adrian wanted this to feel like a business meeting, not an ambush. The faction leaders arrived one by one. Tommy Chen looking nervous. Sarah Mitchell, cold and assessing. The newer players. Marcus Rivera, who ran street-level distribution, and Catherine Park, who'd taken over logistics after her predecessor disappeared. They sat around the table, eyeing each other and Adrian with varying degrees of suspicion. Thank you for coming, Adrian began. I'll keep this brief. The organization is fragmenting. Territory wars have started. People are dying, including civilians. This stops tonight. Why should we listen to you? Marcus Rivera spoke up. You've been gone for months. Marcus ran things until you killed him. I killed Marcus because he tried to murder my wife and unborn child. Anyone else want to question my commitment to family? Adrian's voice was cold. I built this organization 15 years ago. Built it from nothing, while most of you were still in school. I'm back because what we created is worth saving, but not like this. Not with us tearing each other apart. So what's your proposal? Sarah Mitchell asked. Reorganization. Decentralized leadership. Each of you runs your territory with autonomy, but we coordinate on major decisions. No more single point of failure like Marcus. No more one person controlling everything. Adrian looked at each of them. You want to keep your operations? This is how we do it without destroying ourselves. And what about you? Tommy Chen asked. Where do you fit in this structure? I don't. I'm here to set it up, make sure it works, then I'm gone. 2 years maximum, probably less. Adrian leaned back carefully. I'm not looking to be your boss. I'm looking to make sure you don't need a boss. Catherine Park frowned. That's not how criminal organizations work. Someone's always in charge. Then we do it differently. We build something that survives leadership changes without collapsing into chaos. Adrian pulled up the tablet, showed them the structure he and Katya had designed. Regional autonomy with shared resources, profit-sharing arrangements that incentivize cooperation, dispute resolution that doesn't involve bullets. They spent the next 3 hours hammering out details. Who controlled what territory? How profits would be divided? What happened when conflicts arose? It was exhausting, brutal work, made worse by Adrian's body screaming for rest. But slowly, grudgingly, they reached consensus. I want it in writing, Sarah said. All of it. Clear terms that can't be reinterpreted later. Agreed. Katya will draft contracts by the end of the week. Adrian stood with difficulty. This only works if we all commit to it. If anyone decides they'd rather go back to the old way, to Marcus's way, they're out. No second chances. What about law enforcement? Marcus Rivera asked. The task force Chen mentioned. We handle that the same way we handle everything else now. Carefully, quietly. No high-profile violence that draws attention. Adrian met his eyes. The days of spectacle are over. We run clean operations or we don't run at all. The meeting ended with handshakes and wary agreement. Not trust, that would take time, but a foundation to build on. After they left, Adrian collapsed into a chair. Rodriguez brought him water and pain medication. That went better than expected, Rodriguez said. It went like the first day of peace after a war. Everyone's exhausted and willing to try anything except more fighting. Adrian swallowed the pills. Give it a week and we'll see if it holds. You think it will? I think it has to, because I don't have another plan. Adrian closed his eyes. Get me back to the safe house. I need to call my wife. The drive back was quiet. Adrian rehearsed what he'd say to Alara, how he'd explain that he was trying to do the right thing, even if it looked like he was choosing the organization over her. But when he called, she didn't answer. He tried twice more before Chen finally picked up. She doesn't want to talk to you right now, Chen said gently. I need to explain. She knows what you're doing. She saw the news about Kozlov's death, about the territory consolidation. She's not stupid, Adrian. I'm trying to minimize casualties. You're trying to save something that doesn't deserve saving. Chen's voice was sad. I love you like a brother, but you're making a mistake. This organization ate 15 years of your life. Don't let it take the rest. It's 2 years, maybe less. That's what you say now, but 2 years becomes 5, becomes 10. I've seen it happen. Chen paused. Alara asked me to tell you something. She says she'll wait 6 months. If you're not here by then, she's filing for divorce and disappearing. You'll never find her or Phoenix. Adrian felt his world tilt. She can't do that. She can, and she will. She's done running, done waiting, done hoping you'll choose family over empire. Chen's voice was firm. 6 months, Adrian. That's what you have. The line went dead. Adrian sat in the van, numb. 6 months. He'd agreed to 2 years, but had 6 months to deliver or lose everything that mattered. It was impossible. Even with perfect execution, restructuring the organization would take a year minimum, and perfect execution didn't exist in their world. Boss? Rodriguez was watching him carefully. I need to speed up the timeline. Everything we planned for 2 years needs to happen in 6 months. That's not realistic. Neither is losing my family. Adrian's hands were shaking. Get Katya on the phone. Tell her we're accelerating everything. Regional heads take control in 3 months instead of 6. Full autonomy in 4. I'm gone in 5. Adrian, you can't rush this. People need time to adapt. Then they'll adapt faster. He met Rodriguez's eyes. Because I'm not losing them again. I can't. Rodriguez made the call. Katya was predictably skeptical. You're talking about condensing 2 years of work into 6 months. It can't be done. It has to be done. Find a way. Adrian's voice left no room for argument. And if it falls apart because we move too fast, then it falls apart, and I deal with the consequences. But I'm not sacrificing my family for criminals who will forget me the second I'm gone. A long pause. Then Katya said, Okay, we do it your way. But you need to be all in for these 6 months. No distractions, no divided attention. Understood. The next months were brutal. Adrian worked 18-hour days despite his injuries, pushing through pain and exhaustion. He met with faction leaders, resolved disputes, set up the new power structures. Rodriguez and his team handled enforcement, keeping the peace when words failed. Slowly, painfully, it started to work. The territory wars stopped. The violence decreased. The organization began operating like a business rather than a gang war. But the cost was steep. Adrian's relationship with Alara deteriorated to text messages and one-word answers. Phoenix's first smile, first laugh, first time rolling over. Adrian missed all of it, hearing about milestones secondhand from Chen. At the 3-month mark, Sarah Mitchell tried to make a move, attempted to seize control of Tommy Chen's gambling operation. Adrian shut it down hard, removing her from the organization entirely and redistributing her territory. The message was clear: cooperation or exile. There was no third option. At 4 months, the police task force made its move, raiding several operations and arresting mid-level operators. But the decentralized structure held. No single arrest could bring down the whole organization. They lost revenue and personnel but survived intact. At 5 months, Adrian handed over operational control to the regional heads. His role became advisory only, someone they could call with questions but who wasn't making daily decisions. It wasn't perfect. The organization still had problems, still struggled with coordination and occasional conflicts, but it was functional, sustainable, something that could survive without him. On the last day of the 6th month, Adrian met with Katya one final time. "You did it," she said, sounding almost surprised. "Actually restructured the whole thing in half a year." "We did it. You, Rodriguez, everyone who bought in." Adrian handed her a folder. "Everything you need is in there, contacts, protocols, emergency procedures. And if something goes wrong, then you handle it. That's the whole point." He stood to leave, still using the cane, though his leg had mostly healed. "I'm done, Katya. Really done this time." She studied him. "You know you could stay, could run this properly, build it into something legitimate. I've spent 6 months building it into something that doesn't need me. That's as legitimate as I'm making it." Adrian headed for the door. "Take care of them, the people who work for you. Don't become Marcus." "I won't. I learned from his mistakes." She smiled slightly. "And yours?" Adrian walked out of that meeting and didn't look back. Rodriguez drove him to the airport where a private plane was waiting. His new identity was ready. James Morrison, consultant from Seattle. Papers, passport, entire background that would hold up under scrutiny. The flight to Toronto was long and turbulent. Adrian spent it wondering if Alara would actually be there when he landed or if 6 months had been too long. If she'd decided life was easier without him. Chen met him at the airport. "She's waiting at the house. Fair warning, she's angry." "I expected that." "And Phoenix won't know you. 6 months is a lifetime at that age." "I know." Adrian's chest felt tight. "Is she really going through with the divorce?" "That depends on you, on whether you can convince her you're actually done this time." Chen drove through Toronto's streets. "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. The organization is more stable than it's ever been. But that doesn't mean she has to forgive you for it." The house was modest, suburban, ordinary, the kind of place that would never attract attention. Chen pulled into the driveway and Adrian saw her through the window. Ilara holding Phoenix, both of them backlit by warm interior light. "Good luck," Chen said. Adrian got out of the car and walked to the front door. Knocked. His heart was hammering harder than it had during any shootout or confrontation. Ilara opened the door. She looked good, healthy, rested, stronger than when he'd last seen her. Phoenix was bigger, alert, and watching Adrian with curious eyes. "Hi," Adrian said. "You're late." "I said 6 months. It's been 6 months and 2 days." Plane was delayed. Convenient excuse. But she stepped back, let him inside. "He doesn't remember you." "I figured." Adrian looked at his son. Phoenix stared back, uncertain. "Hi, buddy. I'm your dad." Phoenix buried his face in Alara's shoulder. "That's going to take time," she said. "You don't get to just walk back in and have everything be perfect." "I know. And I meant what I said about the divorce. If you ever go back, if you ever choose that life over us again, I'm gone. No second chances. No explanations." "I understand. Do you?" She set Phoenix down in a playpen, turned to face Adrian fully. "Because I've heard promises before. You promised to keep me safe, and I got blown up. You promised you were out, and you spent 6 months running a criminal organization. Why should I believe this time is different?" Adrian didn't have a good answer. Nothing he could say would erase 6 months of absence or 15 years of bad choices. "Because I finally understand what I was afraid of," he said quietly. "All those years building the organization, I told myself it was about security, about giving you a good life. But really it was about being too scared to just be a person. Being a crime boss gave me identity, purpose, made me feel important." He moved closer to her, maintaining distance but closing the gap slightly. "Losing you, thinking you were dead. It broke something in me, but it also clarified things. Made me realize that all the power and money and respect meant nothing if I didn't have you to share it with." He gestured at the modest house. "This is enough. You and Phoenix are enough. I don't need to be Adrian Voss, the crime boss. I just need to be your husband and his father." Alara's eyes were wet. "That's a nice speech." It's the truth. We'll see. She wiped her eyes. You've got one chance, Adrian. One. You screw this up and we're done. I won't screw it up. That's what you said last time. She was right. He had said that. Had meant it too, back when he thought he could have both worlds. Had learned the hard way that some things couldn't be reconciled. Phoenix started fussing in the playpen. Alara went to pick him up, but Adrian stopped her. Can I? She hesitated, then nodded. Adrian picked up his son carefully. Phoenix was warm and solid and real in a way nothing else had been for months. The baby studied his face with serious eyes, trying to decide if this stranger was trustworthy. I'm sorry I wasn't there, Adrian whispered. I'm sorry for all of it, but I'm here now, and I'm not leaving again. Phoenix grabbed his finger, small hand, tight grip. The same reflexive grasp from when he was born, but stronger now, more certain. He likes you, Alara said softly, even if he doesn't remember you. I'll make new memories, better ones. Adrian looked at her over their son's head. We all will. The first weeks were awkward. Adrian was learning how to be a father, while Alara was learning whether she could trust him again. They moved around each other carefully, testing boundaries, building routines. Adrian changed diapers and did night feedings. Learned how to soothe Phoenix when he cried. Discovered that domesticity was harder than running a criminal empire. No clear rules, no obvious solutions, just constant adaptation and patience. But slowly it got easier. Phoenix started smiling when Adrian walked into a room, started reaching for him, started treating him like a fixture rather than a stranger, and Alara started softening. The anger didn't disappear, couldn't, given everything that had happened, but it became less sharp, less present in every interaction. 3 months after Adrian arrived in Toronto, they had their first real conversation about the future. What do you want to do? Alara asked. For work, I mean. We can't live on the offshore account forever. I've been thinking about that. Adrian was holding Phoenix, who'd fallen asleep against his chest. Chen mentioned consulting, helping businesses with logistics and efficiency. Using skills you learned running a criminal organization. Using skills I learned, period. The source doesn't matter if the application is legitimate. He adjusted Phoenix carefully. I'm good at solving complex operational problems. That's valuable outside criminal contexts. It is. He was quiet for a moment. Would you be happy doing that, after everything you've done? I don't know if happy is the goal anymore. Content, maybe. Satisfied that I'm building something instead of destroying things. He looked down at Phoenix. I want him to be proud of what his father does. Can't do that if I'm still connected to the old life. Alara moved closer, rested her head on his shoulder. I'm proud of you. For walking away. For choosing us. I know it wasn't easy. It was the easiest choice I ever made. Everything else was just logistics. She laughed softly. Only you would describe leaving a criminal empire as logistics. I'm a simple man with simple needs. You're many things, Adrian Voss. Simple isn't one of them. They sat there in this quiet house, their son sleeping between them, building the kind of ordinary moment that had seemed impossible a year ago. There was no violence here, no scheming or strategy, just a family learning how to exist together. The news about the organization reached them occasionally. Chen would call with updates. The regional structure was holding, profits were steady, violence was down. The experiment was working, at least for now. Adrian listened to these updates with detachment. That world felt distant now, like something from someone else's life. The scars remained, physical and psychological, but the pull was gone. A year after arriving in Toronto, Alara got pregnant again. Adrian cried when she told him, overwhelmed by the second chance he'd been given. You're going to be here this time, she said. Every appointment, every milestone. Every second, he promised. And he was. He went to ultrasounds and birthing classes, helped prepare the nursery, held Alara's hand through morning sickness and back pain and all the ordinary struggles of pregnancy. When their daughter was born, healthy and loud and perfect, Adrian was there. Not running from enemies or making deals or trying to save an empire, just being present for the moment his family grew. They named her Hope because that's what she represented, what they all represented. Proof that people could change, that the past didn't have to define the future, that even someone who'd spent 15 years building something destructive could learn to build something worth keeping.
5 years after that night in the diner, Adrian stood in the backyard of their permanent house, bigger now, to accommodate 2 kids and the life they'd built. Phoenix was 7, playing soccer with neighborhood kids. Hope was 4, helping Alara plant flowers in the garden.
Rodriguez called occasionally, updating Adrian on the old crew. Most had gotten out, built new lives. Some had struggled. A few had fallen back into old patterns and paid the price. But the organization itself had evolved, become something closer to legitimate. The regional heads had slowly transitioned operations into legal enterprises, real estate, logistics companies, consulting firms, using the infrastructure they'd built for crime to build actual businesses. It wasn't perfect. There were still gray areas, still questionable deals, but no one was getting shot over territory. No 7-year-olds were dying in crossfire. "You thinking about the old days?" Alara asked, coming to stand beside him. "Thinking about how far we've come." Adrian put his arm around her. "How close we came to losing this. But we didn't lose it. We fought for it, both of us. You fought harder. You had to. And you came back. That's what matters." She leaned into him. "Phoenix asked me yesterday what you used to do for work, before consulting." "What did you tell him?" "That you made mistakes but learned from them. That you were brave enough to change when change was hard." She looked up at him. "Was that okay?" That was perfect. Adrian watched their children playing.